Mara, are we ready to go?
We are ready.
Sweet. Okay. And I understand Sherry is our voice tonight.
Yep.
Okay. You ready to go, voice?
Yep.
Sherry? Great. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the City of Ojai Historic Preservation Commission. Today is Thursday, August 10th. This is a regular meeting, and we are beginning it at 5 o'clock p.m. Sherry, could I get a roll call, please?
Chair Akins,
Here.
Vice Chair McCatton,
Here.
Commissioner Convery,
Here.
Commissioner Basacha,
Here.
Commissioner Walker.
Here. Great, thank you. If everyone would stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you all. Let's see. Let me read the part. Next up is public communications. Public communications is the time set aside during the Historic Preservation Commission meeting for members of the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items of city business other than scheduled agenda items. Matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the commission and will generally be referred to staff and/or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at this meeting. Sherry, do we have
No.
no general public comments?
No.
Okay, I have number threes, and then Loanne, is it?
It is.
Loanne, are you speaking on public comments?
I don't know. I didn't really understand it, and I may not have anything to say, but I thought I'd throw my name in the hat just in case.
Okay, so why are you here?
Because my house is up for a
Okay,
structure of merit.
that would mean that you are also item number 3.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I don't do the legalese stuff so much.
Can I say something? If anyone would like to pick up an agenda, it's right there in the front, and then you can see what order things are in and learn a little bit more about what we're talking about tonight. It might help.
And we are just about to rearrange that agenda, so keep that in mind. Okay, so we don't have anyone that in person or via Zoom for public communications. So we will move on to the museum representative report. I talked to Wendy Barker, who is our executive director for the museum. And the highlight of the museum, and one she wanted to mention, is that the museum website has finally moved from the darker ages and is now current. The author of the website is well-known and did a great job. So she recommends people come to ohighvalleymuseum.org and check out the new website and all the fabulous information that is associated with it. So next item, consent items. Do we have any changes to the minutes that were in our package?
None.
Brian,
Craig, yes.
I just had one, was the spelling of Janice. Janice Cash, it's Janis.
Is that in the minutes from, it's here
I
someplace?
believe it is.
Yeah, I think so too. What item would that be, Commissioner?
That would be item 4
For,
on the Preservation Award.
Oh, there we go.
She spells her name Janis.
yes, she does.
And then the only other question I had was when we approved or we recommended that the council set up a 2+2 committee with the city, with the school district, was that to have 2 members of this commission or 2 members of the council to meet with 2 members of the school board?
My understanding, my thought from the meeting was that we were recommending that it be of the two on the city side and the two on the councils or on the school district side, that we be involved in that.
And they would be city council people, not members of our commission? Because they would discuss a lot more issues than just,
So so that was kind of my understanding. What I've seen since our meeting in practice and in a discussion that took place in the council meeting is that the council is talking about having, working to get they've had it two from the council, two from the school district. Sound like they have had some meetings, perhaps.
Excuse me, sorry, can we, are we correcting the minutes?
well, that's
And
what I'm
I
asking.
don't know, let's just correct the minutes and not talk about what discussion's going on between the council and the,
I was getting there.
I'm just.
not talk about what those discussions are. Okay,
I was getting there just to give some understanding on what we were talking about.
okay.
So the question I think that you're asking, is that to HPC members, is that to council members?
Right, was the motion that we approved to recommend to the council that there be two HPC members, or was it two council members?
HPC.
HPC.
I would agree with that because we asked Councilman Whitman on how we would approach that. And so I would think that
Yeah, no,
the
for sure.
minutes should reflect
Then the minutes are
HPC
correct.
members.
We had previous discussions about it in a prior meeting as well.
Okay.
And in the joint session.
Yes, yes. So
So on page 6 of 7 of the minutes, towards the bottom, the commission agreed at this time, the only recommendation they would like is to make is to ask the city council if they would consider allowing the HPC to have a 2+2 ad hoc committee with the school district. Is that where you are?
yes.
That's where I was. but
Right. And
I've
so-
been corrected, so,
Well, but I thought you just said, I'm sorry, that it is the the request is to have the HPC have two so it's not corrected, but it's accurate.
So the minutes are correct, right, Craig?
right.
Yes,
that's
oh,
what I'm
okay,
saying.
okay, thank you.
Any other changes? Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, could we get a motion to approve the minutes, please?
I'll make a motion to approve with the correction of spelling Janice's name, as Craig
Second.
pointed out.
And second by whom? Craig?
Yep.
Okay. Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Akins,
Yes.
McCatton,
Abstain.
Convery,
Yes.
Basasha,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, at this time, I would like to propose to the council that we move, going back to our agenda, flipping over there. Currently, the discussion items in the agenda is to discuss the annual Historic Preservation Award. Following that, the structures of merit list. We have many people here. Wonderful to see you all, have you here. Hope we'll have a good discussion and have everybody will go away understanding. So what I would like to suggest is that we move item 3 up to item 2 and then move the annual historic preservation down to item 3. So any discussion on that? Nope. Okay, do we have a motion then to approve that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
And
Okay.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Gina. Okay, Sherry, roll call, please.
Akins,
Yes,
McCatton,
Yes.
Convery,
Yes.
Basasha,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
excellent. So if you were looking for item number 3 on the agenda, that was in the foyer here, has now been moved up to item number 2. Okay, so staff report.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. So this is a discussion on the structures of merit list that's in your packet. And at the July 13th meeting, the HPC voted to forward a current list of proposed structures of merit minus the ISIS Theater to the City Council with a request for adoption, with the understanding that a letter would be sent to potential structure of merit property owners, offering them an opportunity to attend the Historic Preservation Commission meeting and ask questions, offer comments, and and just get a better understanding of what structures of merit are. They also had an opportunity to contact staff in advance of the meeting. So a letter was sent to the property owners on July 28th, and several owners have contacted staff requesting information about the process, and 6 have requested that their structures not be included on the list. Staff informed the owners that they don't really have the option to opt out, but that they can request to be removed from the list, and that the HPC may revise the list by removing the address, or leave it on. It would move forward to the city council, and there will be an asterisk next to the name of, or the address, stating that, that they don't wish to be on the list. And with that, I know there are people here that are probably going to have more questions about what the structures of merit are. And yes, we have speaker cards, and I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Okay, great. Okay. Any questions for staff on what Mara just suggested with us? No? Okay. Then let's open the discussion item, public hearing on that. And we will do the speaker cards.
Brian?
Yes.
Should we give a little background on the list and what it means and how it evolved, and so that everyone understands where it came from before we ask them to comment on it? Would that be?
Not usually the way we go, but it sounds a bit more reasonable in the current case.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Well, I was just going to say that there is more in your packet, more information that I could actually give, as opposed to just giving that little blurb to you, if you'd like me to do that.
Yes, please.
Okay, so included in your packet is, let's see, is some history on this particular list, and it goes back to 2019, when a list was put together and forwarded to the city council, and it never did get adopted at that time. So the list has been around for a while, and there have been discussions going on for some years, and there were public meetings some years ago before the list was created, or during the time of creating the list. So our code, it's section 4-8.13, structures of merit and points of historical interest of our code. It states that the HPC may recommend to the council individual structures of historic, architectural, community, or aesthetic merit which have not yet been designated as landmarks, deserving of being added to a council-approved special recognition list. The purpose of the list is to recognize and encourage the protection, enhancement, perpetuation, and use of these particular structures. As owner of a structure of merit, one may negotiate with the city the placement of a historical plaque before any permit is issued by the building department or by the building official for either demolition or alteration of a structure of merit. The permit application to the building official is to be forwarded to the HPC for review and comment before issuing permit. And there's no fee associated with this procedure, and there's also not a decision that's being made by the HPC. It's for review and comment. It's not a discretionary permit, for instance. Also, no structure designated as a structure of merit would be subject to demolition by neglect or as determined by the building official. Also, before any permit is issued for repair to a structure of merit, the applicant would be forwarded to the community development director for review and comment, for possible forwarding at the director's discretion to the commission, the Historic Preservation Commission, again for review and comment, not for a discretionary response. And that information was also sent to all of the potential structure of merit property owners prior to this meeting.
Okay, so, yeah, so we have a copy of the letter, attachment A, page 1 of 1 in the packet, that went out to each of the property owners.
And there are 35.
35 of
There
them.
there were 36, but there are now 35 because the ISIS Theater was taken off because it's been, since the list was created, it's been designated as a historic landmark. And that's the, it was called the ISIS Theater. It's our Ojai Playhouse.
It was. I just want to go back to, because this is a date, I kind of focus on, and you mentioned it. So under the paragraph history, it says, this is in the staff report. Again, all of this information is available online by going to the city website, then Historic Preservation Commission, and then looking under agendas. The section, paragraph that's history in bold says, in 2013, the Historic Preservation Commission, HPC, recommended to the City Council adoption of a Sites of Merit list, which included, at that time, 37 properties. These 37 properties were proposed for a Sites of Merit designation. So, when did your name possibly first go on that list? Sometime, again, about 10 years ago. That's important.
Brian? Could I just add that I was on the commission 10, 12 years ago, and at that time, there was such a list, but it was just informal. It was something that the HPC would give to the planning department, a list of all the buildings that we felt deserved some kind of extra acknowledgement and also review at the time if they were going to be demolished. If the owner wanted to demolish, at least it would give us a chance to talk to the owner and inform them about the historic nature of their house and try to come to some kind of agreement with them before that decision was finalized. And what would happen is the planners would go down their list and they would find if the house was on that list, and then they would just include that in the packet when the owner wanted to alter their house or to demolish it or their business or whatever it was. And that would be part of the process of granting the permit. And then about 10 or 12 years ago is when they decided they wanted a little bit more formal list that was actually approved by the city council. So that's what led to this, was this idea that we wanted to put down a more formal list. And even when that list was first created, the one that you see before you 10 years ago or 12 years ago, I don't think anybody knew that it even needed to be approved by the city council. But now it's become clear that to really make it have some effect and be a little more formalized, that it needed to have the city council approval. So that's why now, even though this list has been around for 10 or 12 years and posted on the city's website and so forth, it's now we're recommending that it go before the council for their formal approval.
Can I talk a little bit about what it means to have a structure of merit? Because I think that might answer a lot of the questions that are in people's minds.
Yeah, I just want to answer one quick question. So, again, it started a decade or so ago. I believe if it does go forward and is presented to the city council, I believe that will be the third time that it's been.
Yeah, at least the third time. And some of you I recognize from being here at some of our meetings 10 years ago when the list, this formalized list, was first presented. So this will be the third time that we've had a public hearing and that it's gone before the council. We hope this time it'll stick.
Yeah. So again, it did go to the city council. The city council essentially punted. And that's why action hasn't taken place in the past, and that's why we're doing all of this over again. Okay, Vice Chair, Commissioner Comrie, sorry.
Cindy.
Cindy.
So it turns out, and this is my understanding, and Craig, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not a landmark. You don't have a landmark building. Anyone who owns a landmark building needs to get approval in historic preservation to, make changes or upgrade or that kind of thing. So, and even the El Robler Hotel isn't a landmark, but it's in the downtown corridor and it's a contributing building. And we worked pretty closely with them to try to bring it back to what it originally was. They they're very interested in that kind of a look and in that kind of preservation. So they did a historic report, and they worked with us to, have the front of the building look to what it was when it was built in 1920. A structure of merit is really just recognizing the building. And I believe, and I might be wrong, Craig, you would know, I think, that the only limitation is you can't just blank tear it down. You can change it, you can go to the planning commission, you can do what you want, you're not limited as a landmark, but you can't just knock it down with a wrecking ball, because right now, as far as I can tell, you can demolish things with a pretty easy permit.
Well, you could even demolish it.
Yeah.
You just have
You
to
gotta get a permit.
appear before someone to discuss it and maybe to have an opportunity to suggest alternatives. But in the end,
Yeah.
then you would still have that right to carry through with your action.
But that's the only limitation, as far as I know, in the code. Is that
And
correct?
the only other one is that the demolition by neglect would be that if you have a historic building that's a resource and you don't take care of it and it's falling apart and deteriorating so badly that it's going to be unable to be saved, then the city might say, you have an obligation to keep this
Yeah.
at least minimal maintenance.
Yeah. And demolition by neglect is a slumlord tactic. They let buildings rot out so they can get rid of people and then tear them down. So it doesn't necessarily apply to Ojai. It has happened at cottages with flowers, I'll mention that. So, that's an issue that people are talking about, that they're letting them run down. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. So I think as far as structure of merit, you would need to go through, a permit to tear the building down. But other than that, as far as permits go, you go in front of the planning commission, just like anybody else, and we don't have anything to do with it, so that's not an onerous thing. There is a little story about a house, and I think it was in 2015. It's on Kenyatta Street. I can't remember the address. It's owned by Scott and Sam, if anybody knows that house. And somebody had purchased it and wanted to put a second story on it. And the architect was actually the chair of historic preservation, Darwin McCready, at the time. He did the plans. And the planning commission refused to allow that second story because they said it was a historic building. It was built in the 20s. It was not a landmark. It was not designated as a structure of merit. It did not come in front of us, but the planning commission denied that permit because they said it was historic and it would affect the neighborhood. And the neighbors didn't want it. So there were a couple things at play. And now it's a restored, really beautiful 1920s Spanish house, and I wish I could remember the address. But if you know Scott and Sam, you know where it is. So, just there's this undercurrent of fear that's been running through Ojai since the hedge wars. Alan, you remember the hedge wars? And it's created a lot of concern about government oversight and permits, and it's all pretty legitimate stuff that's happening. There's a lot of drama. I've been subjected to it. Certainly, I have a landmark home, but that's not what this is about. So that's my speech.
And I would like to say there's some advantages to being on the list. One of them is if you're designated as a city historic resource, which a structure of merit is, you become eligible to use the California State Building Code, historic building code. So let's say, for example, you're trying to fix up the front porch of your old 1880s house and you want to revitalize the banister on the stairs, and the city comes along and says, well, that doesn't meet our code because our code is it has to be at X degrees and this is not, so you have to rebuild it. Or to say because you have to make this one change in your house, you have to bring the whole house up to code. Well, the state historic building code says if you have a recognized historic house, then you don't have to follow those if you're doing something to maintain or improve your historic building. So it does come with some advantages as well.
That's actually a huge advantage because you can maintain the house as you like it, as it is. And, I think we are not allowed to put wood-burning fireplaces in now. They have to be a certain style. So if your fireplace were compromised, and I did have to rebuild my fireplaces in my 1929 house, I think at that time the city would have not allowed me to keep those wood-burning fireplaces. But it's a historic house, so I could use the California Historic Code and
And
keep
you
those
obviously have to still
details.
keep your house safe, but they
Yeah.
can't say it's not safe just because you didn't follow the code. They have to be able to really show that it's not safe. So those are some things just to kind of weigh in your mind that you might find useful.
Yeah, less code enforcement for sure. So, these are things that you don't know, like, who knows this stuff, right? It's not something that we all are familiar with. Unfortunately, we are all familiar with it, but not, or fortunately. But, a regular person isn't going to really be familiar with California historic building codes, but they're really fantastic for maintaining old properties and not having the building inspector tell you that you have to take out all your windows or something, So anyway, that's just a little bit of information to help with maybe some of the questions that you might have had coming forward. And I'll stop.
Great. Long staff report, great information. Anything that we shared that needs to be cautioned or corrected from city staff?
From the discussion just now?
Uh-huh.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Love when we're in sync. I will just point out that a historic structure of merit does not exist until the city council says they exist. All of this is per the code, so that's why we keep coming back to this. Okay, so we will go to public comments, if that is okay with everybody. I have 4 of them. Let's go with John Ovesland. Orisland?
Yeah, that's homemade, our land.
Our land. Oh, there we go. Okay, I like it.
So I
I was like, I do a lot of family history. I don't remember that.
would just
So, if
like,
you-
Savannah, will you come up with?
Yes.
Here,
I'd just like to add that if everyone, when you go up to the podium, if you could state your name, and there will be a 3-minute limit on all public speakers. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
here's what I'm gonna say.
And if you didn't get a card and you want to speak, there are these blue cards that are in the lobby. It's not too late to go grab one, fill it out, and give it tomorrow if you'd like to speak.
Did anybody get 2?
No, one here.
Is there 2 here? Well, here, I'll give it to you.
Well, Cindy and I can share.
I gotta read.
Okay. Yep, Cindy and I will share.
Okay, I'm John Arslan, and my wife's Joyce Syme. And the reason I'm really concerned is because the house on there, it's 5 acres, and then there's, 18 acres behind it and stuff like that. And we want to, I wanted to make it Joyce Syme, Phipps, Arslan, for animal preserve. I want it preserved. I don't want to build on it. I want to, you see it down the road, the preserves and stuff for animals and stuff. I mean, it has every kind of animal there is on the place, eagles, just everything. So in saying that, stuff like that, and I don't want the house and stuff to limit us from making it a reserve for animals. I don't ever plan on selling it. I don't ever plan on tearing the house down or anything like that. But I want that. But so I wrote this up because we got your notification. It was in the mail. It was in my gate. You know what I mean? This thing like this. Anyway, I'm John Arslan, owner of 512 Foothill Road, Ojai, California. Joyce Syme and I, her husband, John, reside together the past 25 years at our resident home at 512 Foothill Road. Never has anyone ever been brought up to our attention that our home was a landmark or structure of historical, architect, community, or aesthetic. I took the words right out of your thing. The property has always been appraised at the home of Joyce and John. Right now, I got a $600,000 lien on the house. I mean, I'm not gonna do something to the house. What rights do you have in categorizing the home of John and Joyce as your structure of merit? When and whom did you notify inserting your theory that Joyce and John's home should be a structure of merit? I wrote this stuff down and stuff because I got that and just trying to figure everything out. As the owner and protector of the property, I do not want anything to do with your structure of merit because of all those stipulations and stuff like that that's in, as the owner and protector. I do not want anything to do with your, please do not include this property in your list of merit. And I'd like to say that I don't know what the thing is. Remember the fires we had a couple years ago? Probably 60% it came across that. And the pool, and some of the structure and stuff is gone because it burnt that part down and stuff like that. And I was gonna bring these pictures and stuff that we were working on all that, getting it back to normal and stuff like that. It was a terrible fire that came across the property. A lot of things you guys said tonight, that lady there saying that, you know, that all that material and that thing here, all this stuff like this really doesn't matter. If you go to front of the building commission and if you wanted to remodel or do something like that, then they make the decision, and all this other stuff doesn't really make any difference. But am I saying,
I think I said what's in here. I said before you tear it down, you gotta try to get a permit.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
second. And
Yeah,
then,
that's the main thing.
yeah, and
right
on the
there.
bottom, it says that the community development director has the discretion to talk to the historic preservation before, like, if,
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
that's up to him, that's up to
Well, we're not,
the,
it's
yeah.
never gonna be
Yeah.
sold, and it's never gonna be
But it's the
torn.
next guy, like John, like, you know, it's if you, God forbid, are not in that house in the future for some reason, you know, it's the next generation that has to then get that permit and deal with
Well,
it.
the home is, the
Yeah.
property's in a trust, and it's
Oh,
not gonna
good.
happen. That's
Great.
not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be
Yeah.
out of this,
Yeah,
and what that is. And, I suppose I have to come in front of you guys to make it a animal preserve.
nope,
No, I don't know how to do all that stuff.
no,
but-
we're just buildings, we don't do land, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, frankly, the language on this letter is very formal, and I think it's off-putting, you know, pursuant to Section C and all that type of thing. Makes you feel like people are gonna come over and tell you what to do. You just can't tear it down without a permit. And if the community development director feels like, you know, a permit request is onerous or egregious or questionable, he might come and ask historic preservation about it. And that is up to his discretion.
Well, I don't want the place,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it's a historic landmark or for this and that.
No.
And then crowds of people start coming.
Not a landmark.
to
Not,
do
and it's,
that.
yeah.
Or
it's-
whatever that is, you know?
No.
I
I think I live at 520 Foothill. I'm in the old Chase House.
oh, okay.
So
well,
I'm your neighbor, yeah, and there's no crowds. I have a landmark.
But then you know how,
Oh, yeah.
this, the
Yeah.
fire department, the county, didn't even know there was a house there
Yeah,
when they did.
yeah.
When the 300 firefighters and stuff made a perimeter and stuff. If you live up there, you understand that it's all, that cul-de-sac's all private, and then it's private all the way up to,
Is it the
My house.
Neutra House?
excuse me?
Is it the Neutra House?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I've been
And
at,
also that,
yeah.
18 acres
Yeah.
behind there and alongside of it. We have to-
That's, I thought that was Mike Parrott's land.
Well, I don't know, is it your parents'
It's
land?
Mike Parrott, the neighbor
Oh,
behind me.
Mike Parrott.
Yeah,
He's a lawyer.
yeah.
Okay, he's a lawyer. He's a lawyer, and we had a deposit down on the land,
Yeah.
but then didn't have enough money, and so then he came in and bought that.
I share a property line with the guy
And he
too.
bought that. Well, we have to take care of all that from the cul-de-sac all the way up for the fire department. We have to clear
Yeah.
that and all that stuff. I mean, we keep that all cleared, and everything has to be
Yeah.
cleared all the way
Which-
for the fire department.
We're getting signaled, it's supposed to be 3 minutes, but if you'd like to talk to me separately, I'll give you my phone number. I mean, I'm your neighbor, and I can talk a little bit more about what I know as far as that goes, and structures of merit and historic stuff, if you want to.
Yeah, well, I don't want this to be a structure of merit and stuff like that.
Yeah, it already is, unfortunately, because it's the Nitra House. I mean, it's already, on the radar as
No,
an
but I
architectural
don't-
thing.
I don't understand that. What do you mean already is and stuff like that?
So
It's not original the way it is. Well, what is the thing? That it's historical?
Okay,
so
let me do a pause real quick and,
Yeah.
So
Go
first of
over
all,
to
the
more.
3-minute clock is only when someone from the public
Oh.
is speaking. As soon as there's a back and forth with the commission, the clock stops. So it's okay to continue after 3 minutes if there's a back and forth, absolutely.
Okay.
So we're not on the clock anymore. As far as staff's understanding, it is not a structure of merit until it's adopted by the council to be on this list of structures of merit. So right now, it is not a structure of merit, but it's on a list to go before the city council because the HPC is requesting that it be a structure of merit. And Commissioner Convery was correct in stating that once a structure of merit, if a structure of merit if someone wishes to demolish it, then they would have to come before the Historic Preservation Commission to discuss it, not to get approval, but to discuss it before demolition. Other than that, if there are any improvements to a structure of merit, the Director of Community Development would be notified, and he would decide whether or not it should come before the Historic Preservation Commission, again, for review and comment, not for approval. They would not be an approving body. It would just be to comment. They might have suggestions to do something a different way, or just want to be or it would be to inform them and to have a discussion.
I think another thing you could do is if you could write down, if you think the house is no longer the same as it was when it was first built. I'm not sure what it looks like today. All I've seen is pictures of it. So if you think over the years, through previous owners, the house has changed so much that it wouldn't even be recognized as that house that was built back when it was, then write that down, because that would be a reason why it wouldn't be on the structures of merit, would be if it wasn't historic anymore. Because all we can go by are the photographs that we see of the house that was built, and which is probably one of the most photographed homes in America, really. It's a beautiful mid-century house, but I don't think any one of us have any idea what changes really have happened to it over the years. So if you feel, well, this would be a mistake because it doesn't really convey the same historic feeling that it was when it was first built, then if you could write that down, then that would help, because then if it's no longer historic, if it doesn't have the integrity of the original building, then
Part of that came across and a fire did, and it burnt up the structure outside that was hooked onto it, and that's gone and stuff. We didn't rebuild it and stuff, it's just gone. But, see, this has a pond
right.
goes around that and stuff. And for years, 25 years or whatever, tried to get a permit to dig a well. But then Ojai won't issue any more well permits and stuff. And this has been going on for 20 years, longer than that. We had $5,000 water bills trying to keep the water.
Could I just step in here?
Am I saying something wrong?
You're not saying anything at all. I just know that we have other cards. A lot of the information that has been shared is applicable to those people who are behind you. And so I think this wonderful exchange is very beneficial to us and to the others that are here. I would take the opportunity to reach out to Commissioner Convery or Commissioner Walker, have both offered to, and Mara from our staff have offered to hear your questions, to answer your questions. And I would just like to get some time for the rest of the people that are behind you.
Thank you very much.
But thank you for coming. Thank you for the questions.
Is
Yes.
there any way that I could go next? I also have a comment card under Savannah Bruto regarding the property.
Sure.
And just a little intersection here. Something that Commissioner Walker stated is that, I'll take that, please, is to submit in writing reasons why a structure is no longer,
No longer has the integrity, which means that it no longer conveys the, what it originally was meant to, because it's been altered or changed over the years, and so it wouldn't even be recognizable if that's the case. I don't know that it is, but whatever you want to put that might indicate it's no longer historic.
thank you.
Well, I'll let you know, yeah. So Savannah Bruto, I'm an attorney, even though you guys got some laughs before. Everyone loves an attorney. I represent Mr. Arsland. My only concern as a trust and estate litigation attorney, we have beneficiaries. So essentially, this notice went out to Joyce Syme. Mr. Arsland is the trustee. We have other beneficiaries. I have concerns as his attorney that if we don't at least put in our input, that these potentially, when you speak about future generations, that, oh, we need to preserve it, we have people that also have interests, and so he can't blindly not fight any sort of designation to keep the status quo. And notice wasn't properly given to him as trustee and beneficiary. So that was my only comment.
Okay.
I'm here, but I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would just a comment from me personally. So I have heard of this home. I have never heard of anyone that's actually been to this home. So as Commissioner Walker was saying, what we have are photos. I'm president of the Ojai Valley Museum. We had a very large photo that was blown up. I think it was like 10 by 10. The only photo I think they were able to get, they were talking about not necessarily the home, but the former occupant of that. So just something to keep in mind. And what they were asking is for kind of an update on what it looks like today, or, you know, the status of what it's in today, just for information.
And I've got my phone number here if you want to.
Okay. So, thank you, John. Thank you, Savannah.
Thank you very much, you guys.
Well, thank you both for being here. Okay, Jeff Holland?
Good evening. Jeff Holland. I've served as the pastor of Ojai Presbyterian Church for the last 22 years. And I was at that commission meeting 10 years ago, talking about all the things that are involved here. The point I raised back 10 years ago is we are one of the few structures in Ojai that is occupied by the people who built the structure for the purpose we built the structure, which is worship. And the concern is that we view our building primarily as existing for the worship of the congregation for which it was built, not for its beauty, which we rejoice in and we celebrate. So, but to put it further, when I was doing research, I'm going to request that you not add our name or remove our name from this list until you speak with the city attorney, because in 2000, the California State Supreme Court upheld the law moved by Willie Brown that religious buildings are exempt from historic preservation regulations and laws. I've given you 2 examples of that in front of you. And I would ask that you would consult with the city attorney, because I believe technically, according to the law of California validated by the Supreme Court justices, you don't have any jurisdiction as a historic society, community, or commission over any religious building because the Supreme Court has ruled the law was valid, and therefore they removed your authority to do anything with a religious building. So I would invite you to speak with the city attorney to confirm that that's accurate, and finding that it is accurate, if that's what they recommend to you, that you remove us because we're not technically, according to the law of California, under your jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, do you follow city codes, like if you're doing a project to?
That's not what the law says. The law says that we have to follow codes, but it says that historic commissions have no authority over religious
Okay,
buildings.
thank you.
So we've never, to my knowledge, violated a code. The building's in great shape. We have no intention of changing the building. It's just a matter of jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, can I have the address of,
304 North Foothill Road.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Mara, do you have any insight on that?
I do not.
Okay, then we will reach out to Mr. Summers. Or maybe Mara, you could reach out to Mr. Summers?
Thank you, staff will, we'll take that from here, thanks.
Great, thank you very much.
We'll take it from here.
And thank you for your insight. Love learning new stuff. Okay, next up is Luann Woolard.
Woolert, a fine Belgian name.
Sweet. And if you could come and tell us your name and just give us some insight into what property you're talking about.
Sure.
So we
My
can.
name is Loanne Woolert. I reside at 922 Grand Avenue, AKA the Halloween House, even though it hasn't been
Oh.
for several years.
Yes.
As you may or may not be aware, my beautiful house, built by Frank Ayers in approximately 1850, and he is buried in my backyard, which goes up to Ayers Court, where the last living heirs of Frank Ayers did reside until approximately 8 years ago when they sadly transcended into the next part of the afterlife. I love my house and a tree fell on it, and I want to make sure I'm not here because you think I'm demolishing my home, because I am not. I am the general manager of Historical Landmark 24 in the city of Ventura, and I have spent since 1986 restoring the Grand Ventura Theater to a place of opulence, which is what my intention with my house is currently. Well, to bring it back to its former glory, and yes, it needs a lot of work, but between the neighbor's tree and the church's tree, it took out all my sprinklers and my roof, and my front yard, and my backyard. And regardless of this, I really kind of don't want to be a structure of merit, because I love my home, but I want it to be my home. I don't want it to be something that is under the surveillance, I can't say that word, sorry, of anybody else telling me I'm not maintaining it up to their standards. If I want to do a haunted house, I want to do a haunted house. If I want to do seances, I want to do seances. And just to say this, there is a headstone, which I pulled out from under my now destroyed front porch from a first Native American cavalry member who used to work for Mr. Ayers on my property, and I've regretted not taking it to the museum, but at the same time, I was afraid if I did, they'd come and rip my house up and make it a historical landmark because bodies are buried there. I don't want it to be a structure of merit. Please. I love my home. It's my home. I know, it sounds convoluted, man, but I'm passionate about my house.
Okay, so can I comment?
Yes.
So I am the president of the Ojai Valley Museum.
Well, if you want it, take it, but please don't dig up my yard.
I have conducted, and we're going to look at this later, I have conducted an oral history interview with the descendants of the Ayers family. When I finished that, and an Ayers tombstone had actually been dropped off at the museum, I took
one of my
charge of
property.
it because otherwise I thought it might disappear and end up in a levee down at the Ventura River.
Which is totally messed up that they did that.
So, and again, so I talked to the Ayers family. I ended up with that tombstone. I did work through the city of Ventura. They were excellent in understanding and gave it to them and made sure that it went over to Ivy Lawn, where it is now placed. Because this was in part of the Ayers family that went to Ventura, never came up to Ojai. As you might know, they came in and they went to all different directions,
Yes, as we all
So-
do. Yeah.
as we all do. They somehow did not mention that there was a body buried in the back, and they did not mention, they told me a lot of different tales. They did not mention that there was a tombstone under the front porch, so I'm just listening with rapt attention.
Well, I love my home. And yes, Mr. Ayers is buried in what I call my dog yard because I do dog rescue, although I have slowed way down on that because it takes a toll. And they replaced that headstone that you moved to Ivy Lawn with a new headstone.
They did.
Yeah,
They
his
did.
last living heirs of Frank Ayers did. So we go and visit it. My dogs like to lay right next to it. Is pretty cool. But yeah, you want my native first American cavalry headstone? You can have it because it needs to be treated carefully. And I don't want to see anything happen to it because it's all hand carved. It's really gnarly, that thick. It's only that big.
Okay, so we move on.
I just don't want
I know
my-
where you live,
I just-
so-
Okay, well, I have a gate, so you won't get through unless you climb my fence.
I have never trespassed on that property as much as I've wanted to, so.
Okay, well,
yes.
if you need my number, you can have my number.
We can share stories.
Let's do that.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. We in the HPC love interesting historical stories from our community. Thank you. Next up, Richard Elwood. Again, if you could share what property that you're,
This is, I'm here to talk about Our Lady and All Angels, Liberal Catholic Church. What's the address? 1502. 1502, yeah, Main Street.
I have been in that church, yes.
Yes, okay. Well, so I believe that the building that is up to be made into a structure of merit is our social hall, which is actually our former main church building that was at another location in town before it was moved to where it is now.
Miners Oaks.
That's right. Since it's been moved, it has been converted significantly. It's no longer a church. It's now our social hall. And it's been converted to such an extent that I would say it's virtually unrecognizable to what it was when it was first constructed. So we feel, and oh, by the way, I am the assistant rector of the church. I'm also here representing our main rector, James Worrell, who's out of town and can't be here. So we feel that this would place an excess burden on us. And not only that, but it's back behind a gate that we normally keep locked except during service time. So it would not be a place where tourists or anyone else would be able to go and see it. Except during service time. Except during service time, in which, of course, everyone is most. Like to pack them in. Yes, absolutely.
Can I make a comment?
So we would respectfully.
You're right after he finishes.
Oh, I just wanted to assure you that nothing about being a structure of merit would open it up to tourists or public viewing or anything. We have landmarks that are private homes and they stay behind gates and there's no program to take people to look at them. It's only at the owner's discretion. Sometimes owners would like to have people come and see their historic building. But I wanted to ask you, when you said that the building had been changed, did you mean on the inside or the outside?
Both,
Both.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about what the burdens are. You said there were you would be placed with burdens. What are the burdens, other
Well-
than you can't tear it down without a permit?
Yeah, we can't tear it down.
Without a permit. You can tear it down, but you need it, so that's the burden.
Yeah.
That's the burden, that you can't tear it down. Okay, thanks.
So anyway, all that said, we would respectfully like to have this building removed from your list of structures of merit. And I can also point you back to the, this document from the,
Church guide.
who was it that presented this?
The Presbyterian
exempting,
Church.
Jeff?
Yeah, exempting places of religious worship from the historic landmark process. I think that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
since I'm speaking to the same
You would need to come to the microphone. We have this vast audience that wants to hear you.
My name is William Downey, and I am representing both the Liberal Catholic Church at 1502 East Ojai Avenue, as well as property held in trust on behalf of the Liberal Catholic Church, specifically the Rogers Cooper Memorial Foundation, which is a 501c3 trust held on behalf and for the benefit of the church. I happen to be the presiding bishop of the church, as well as the regionary bishop for the United States. And I reside here in Ojai and have been in the priesthood of our church in excess of 50 years. So this property has been in the possession of the LCC since the early 1920s, and Father Elwood already explained that the property, the social hall, was moved in 1947, I believe, down. We have pictures of it coming through town on the back of a flatbed, and moved to its present location and served as the parish church here at the present location until the 60s, when we built our present church, and then it became our social hall. And there have been significant changes to the building itself, but we are concerned with one more level of oversight, whether or not the commission, with all due respect, just serves as an advisory body to the planning commission. It is yet, according to your letter, yet another level that one would have to pass before the planning commission would make a decision on its part. We strongly object to being designated as a structure of merit, and I'm here tonight mainly because we want to get in early and make it clearly stated that we do not wish to be designated. Thank you.
Just to correct something, our advice, our mandate is to advise the city council. Occasionally, when asked, we give advice to the planning commission if they ask about something historic, but our reporting line is to the city council.
Right,
Thank you.
right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Can I ask a question to clarify something?
Sure.
Did you say that any building has to have a demo permit, whether it's under a site of merit designation or not?
I used to think that you didn't need a permit to demolish a building, but then the bowling alley debacle proved that you do need a permit.
I think you would need a permit, but it's ministerial.
Yeah, yeah.
And then what this would do is put just a little pause for conversation about whether that was something that really wanted to happen with this building,
Yeah.
and then it could proceed after that. But it's just an opportunity for us to discuss what's being done here, because once the building's gone, it's gone, and
Yeah.
you know, a building like that is connected so much to the community, the Siete Robles neighborhood, the Crotona, many areas are kind of all tied together through that building. John Roney was one of the main architects of early Ojai who designed the building, so.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about landmarks. We're not talking about landmarks, we're talking about structures of merit, which means it has cultural significance in Ojai. It's not a landmark. We're not, and I think the only structure of merit, quote-unquote, burden that the liberal Catholic Church described was that they need a permit to tear it down. That's it. Like, you officially need to get a permit that's not ministerial. That's
Well,
the
they
only.
would still need a permit.
Yeah, they would still need a permit, but they would have to actually say words
A
to get it.
conversation
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, yeah, but it is not a landmark. It's a culturally significant building, like the Presbyterian Church is definitely culturally significant. And this guy, this is interesting because, and I just figured this out, it'll be interesting to hear what the lawyer says, because his piece of paper that is a printout about this court exempting this church from landmark process, not structure of merit, which is a completely different, this argument. I'll be interesting to hear what the lawyer says, because I don't think it
I was
holds
just
up.
going to question that, because
Yeah.
it does say preservation laws and historic landmark process. and
Yeah,
that's
it's not
something
anything
we
about
wanna
cultural
do.
significance or what it means to the town and, recognizing it.
Okay, since Craig said the word first, can you explain to those that may be watching and those here, when you say that's a ministerial decision? Please.
Well, probably Maura could answer
Maura?
it better, but my understanding is that ministerial, if you meet all the requirements for doing a demolition, then you can get it. It's not discretionary. It doesn't have to go before a board for a discretionary decision. Is that correct? Or?
A demolition, to my knowledge, a demolition permit does not need to go before a board as a discretionary request, as you just said. However, it's something within the building department, not community development. And in order to demo a building or even a portion of a building, one does need to get a demolition permit,
Right.
interior or exterior.
But someone could own a historic property and have it demolished, and as long as it met the requirements for demolishing a
Yeah.
building in the city, the planning department would, or the building department would have to grant that. It's not something that they have any discretion over, as long as the requirements are met, correct?
Well, except that you just said if it was a historic building. If it was a historic building, then, are you
No,
talking
if
about?
it was a historic building but not on our list.
Not a structure of merit.
Oh, right. If it's not on any kind of a list, then it would not come
It's
here. It
all
would,
gonna be- yeah.
that's
And part of
accurate.
the problem is a lot of the building people that come here, they go to various cities and they move from one city to the next. So a lot of times you'll get someone in the planning or the building department who doesn't really know Ojai, and why should they? They don't know which buildings are historic. So this is just a way to maybe earmark the file of that property to say, you might want to look at this property and talk to the owner and really understand that they know what they're doing.
Craig, just to let you know, there is a, I don't know what you would call it, a flag or something, that if a building is built, it's more than 50 years old, it is flagged as to be looked at as a historic building. And that's why the house I mentioned on Cañada, where they wanted to add 2 stories, was denied by the Planning Commission because they deemed it as a historic home that shouldn't have that second story, because it would ruin the character of the building, and it wasn't a structure of merit, and it wasn't a landmark. So it's kind of random, how these things happen, but there is a little spotlight on older, historic, I'll call them
I don't
historic.
think that happens anymore. It
No,
used to
well, it
happen.
did. It was, 5 years ago, 6 years ago? It
Yeah, it was
can happen.
more than that. So what happened
7
on
years
that
ago.
property is that the planning commission required them to do a historic resources report.
Oh.
That historic resources report never came to the HPC because we hadn't changed the code. So when we rewrote the code, in the code, it reflects that if a historic resources report is prepared for a property within the city of Ojai, then it needs to come before the Historic
So that was the
Preservation
planning
Commission.
commission making a decision on a building. It
It-
wasn't anything to do with a structure of merit or a landmark or any of these lists.
And so just for the HPC's information, just in case you don't know, and also the public, although Mr. Downey knows this, I think maybe he left, any second story for a single-family home in the city of Ojai, no matter what the historical significance is, has to go to the Planning Commission for a discretionary permit, and the Planning Commission is reviewing it for its context, architecture, scale, continuity with the surrounding
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
community.
But
And
this,
so,
but when these buildings come to the planning commission looks at what year it was built, whether it's a second story, or whether it's a new kitchen, or whether it's a back room, and then they can ask for that report.
I'm
The
not
second story just happened to be that building, so it's not, it's not that.
Anyway, next speaker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I found out about it because I get all of the agendas when they come and look for things that are gonna raise questions. Okay, moving on, William Downey?
William Downey spoke already.
He did?
Yes.
Okay,
He had the gray suit on. He was just up.
okay. Alan Thornhill. Alan, I know, so. Alan, again, if you could just relate to us the property you're talking about, please.
Okay, hi, I'm Alan Thornhill, and we live at 311 North Ventura Street here in town, my wife and I didn't really come here to talk. I came here to get some information and just to enlighten ourselves a little bit about this. We have a very unique house in town. It's one of the more beautiful houses in the whole valley, and as I'm sure a lot of people who know say the same thing, among all the beautiful places in the valley. We've lived in it for several years, and we plan on staying there, and we don't plan on changing it whatsoever. It was built very well back in the late 20s, and very unique design, very unique construction that was probably more common during that time when things were built very well, and it's a real jewel. It is almost 100 years old, and most of the whole house still is the whole house is intact, and most everything still works, including the roof. It's the original roof, which still works to this day, except in one part of the house over the years being underneath the oak trees, the falling leaves and everything have just deteriorated the underlayment underneath the roof. The roof tiles are still intact, and what really needs to be done when we can get around to doing it, and the years keep going by, and I'm not able to, but in our estimation, the thing to do would be to take those tiles and actually number them and lift them gingerly up off the roof just in that one area, put a new underlayment down, and then put them back down, and it's probably good for another 100 years. That's how well the house was built. And I'm glad to hear what you said about some of the older houses would be exempt from some of the modern building codes, because I know the modern building codes would say, oh, just got to tear the whole thing off and redo it with a new DuPont or whatever, new materials that we use these days. And like I said, the materials that were used 100 years ago for this particular roof are still intact. And I don't think anybody who would see this house would say, don't change a thing about it. If you're going to do something at all, just take it back to its original state, and which it all is. It's just that one small part of the roof, which I hope that we will find the wherewithal to be able to repair. So, like I said, we've been approached a couple of times over the years about our house being a structure of merit or being part of the historical committee and so on and so forth, and we just came tonight to gather some more information, and our intentions are to take care of this jewel of a house that we were fortunate to find ourselves in possession and live in quite happily. And thank you for hearing me out, and great to hear some of the new information here.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
And if I could just add one thing,
course.
it is possible to even put an addition onto a home that's a landmark, much less a structure of merit. A structure of merit, there's no limitation to what you can actually do, but it just has to follow certain standards so
Yeah.
that it doesn't detract from the historic value of the house. But if
Right.
you need an extra bedroom on it for a new child or something, there's nothing that prevents you from doing that. So I just
Right.
wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that the house is frozen in time, but
Right.
that's not true.
Well, this one is.
Yeah, that's good.
We don't plan on doing anything to this house, nor I think would anybody else want to. It's a real jewel.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
And hopefully we can repair the part of the roof that for the last, every fall, I get up and put a tarp over that part of the roof just to take care of it. And then the springtime, we take it back down until we can repair it. But to look at it, it's still perfectly intact. It's what's underneath it that has, that needs attention.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Okay, Severo Laura. Come on down.
Thank you, Chair Hackins, Historic Preservation Commissioners and staff. I have to say, I have witnessed Mr. Thornhill and his house, and I have seen him put the tar up. So I've witnessed to that. I'm here on behalf of the Help of Ojai, speaking on the 108 South Montgomery property. I am currently the secretary of the Help of Ojai board, and I'm here reading the letter from our co-director. So Help of Ojai respectfully declines the opportunity for 108 South Montgomery Street to be made a structure of merit for the city of Ojai. Help of Ojai is a nonprofit that is a sole provider of social services within the Ojai Valley, with the emphasis on serving seniors, low-income families with minor children, and homeless and unsheltered people. Our mission is to combine community and individual resources to respond to the identification unmet basic human needs for those living in the Ojai Valley. Being a structure of merit does not aid, support, or further our mission to provide basic needs services. Furthermore, as owners of the property, we fear that such a designation would infringe on our right to control and potentially inhibit our ability to serve the community and adapt to future needs. As a mission-driven organization that is supported by the community, it is important for Help of Ojai to be able to pivot and act quickly to meet emerging needs. And this is sincerely our co-directors, Ms. Jane Walters and Megan Tafler, and our co-directors and Help of Ojai with the support of Help of the board of directors. And I do want to, being on the, as an elected official, I do want to just say that I duly respect your service to the community. I know that your whole mission is to protect our character and our history, our culture as a community. So I do want to say that. I personally know some of you. I serve on different nonprofits with some of you. And I just want to say that this is just coming from our mission, trying to serve another sector of our community. And I do hope that in the future we could have the ability to work together on different projects. But as of right now, we respectfully decline, and we hope that you would take us off your list. But thank you for your service.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Severo. Okay. Matt Henriksen. Let me guess which property.
I'm here representing the Bart Spokes property. Mostly I just have questions. I used to hear at the meeting 13 years ago too, or in 2013, and it's been interesting watching this idea of a historic district or historic building of cultural note kind of develop and you've done a really good job of explaining it. There seems to still be a lot of confusion over landmark and historic status. It makes sense to me that it's confusing, because we only really had that one status before. But I was wondering how well defined the parameters are for like a structure of merit, and if there's a more detailed description of like what constitutes both being eligible, but also what constitutes a structure. So of course, I'm more concerned about Bart's being a crazy structure and not like many of the civic or personal homes that are up for review for this. It is very strange. So it's like this old house. I don't remember the exact date it's built, it's late 30s, early 40s. But then there's the property around it that's much less old than that and has been constantly evolving. So I mostly am just looking for, or I have questions about what constitutes the structure. Is it the grounds, is it the building itself, is it the home? And just a more detailed description of that, and how, and also because of my interest in continuing developing the property, what constitutes demolition? Because like I said, the place is constantly changing and evolving. And what would the scope of those definitions be? And is it further elucidated somewhere where I can read it?
Can I answer that?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I don't think there's anywhere where you can read that exactly, but a structure of merit is culturally significant to the town or to the town's story. So Bart's Books is culturally significant, which makes it a structure of merit. It contributes to the story of Ojai. Demolition means tear the whole thing down. That's demolition. Okay, that's not fix the wall or add an addition or put a second story on or build a kitchen. That's all construction. So there's demolition, blow it away, and there's construction. So those are more definitions for you. But it is a structure of merit because it's culturally significant, and that really is the definition. It's not a landmark. It could be a landmark. You know, it could be both, but it's significant to the story of Ojai. So that's why I think it was chosen.
Yeah, and I would just like to add that when you're talking about a historic structure, you're always looking for what are the character-defining features. And I think for Bart's Books, it's the outdoor character of the buildings. It's the free books, not the free books, but the honor system books that you have out. I don't want to give anything away here. But the honor system that was developed way back with Mr. Bartendale, and I think too that, let's say it was no longer going to be a bookstore, and they wanted to sell the building, then obviously it wouldn't be, well, whoever buys that house has to have all these book racks outside forever and ever. I mean, it's not like that. It is kind of dependent on what it's known for and trying to preserve the character and the feel of what makes that special. And whatever it is, it sure draws a lot of people because people are sure attracted to that place. So it's just trying to kind of give you some benefits from it, but also just making sure that it captures those character-defining features.
You guys have done a pretty good job, like I said, of explaining the difference between a landmark and a historically significant place. And I agree that Bart's is significant to the culture of Ojai. And as I've been in charge of the property and developing it as a business and a property over the last 10 years, I personally have been very cautious about trying to preserve the original character while making it better. And so, again, my only major concerns, I was talking with my friends from Treasures Ojai earlier today, and they're like, does the plywood on the exterior, does that count as like, this is the stuff, these are the questions that come up for me, because again, it's a totally wacky place and it's always been like that. And I've always been dealing with like, how can I make this better without making it less wacky?
But that's where being a structure of merit would come in handy for you, because if you had to go by current building codes and current requirements,
Well, I know.
you know. But if you're a structure of merit, you can go back to California historic building codes and you're covered. You could put, you can use wood for one thing. So that really would work to your benefit, to Bart's Books' benefit, per se.
I don't have any strong feelings either way. I'm just
Yeah.
honestly just asking questions.
Well, it's interesting because considering that Lahaina just burned down, which was, I don't know who's been to Lahaina, I've been to Lahaina, but it was a very historic town. And, any town burning down gets a lot of attention, but Lahaina particularly, the sadness comes from losing all that historic preservation that they worked really hard to maintain, the story of Hawaii. And you know, I mean, Alan, I respect what you're doing. I love your house. You know, it's fantastic. But what about the person who had it before you? They kept it that way. They could have not done that, and the person who comes after you, you know, might not want to respect that. So having that, just that small structure of merit awareness helps people to understand it, and I think it encourages buyers. When somebody's buying a home that they know is a structure of merit, they're more prone to be a preservation-minded person, or a person who likes, you know, historic, antique, older type buildings. And there, and I'll wrap it up quickly, but there's a wonderful little Spanish house right by the Presbyterian Church that about, God, maybe 15 years ago, I don't know who bought it, but they took out all the Spanish windows and put in plate glass. They painted it white. They put black trim. I mean, they try to make the Spanish bungalow into a mid-century modern house, and it looks insane, you know, and it doesn't add to the character of the town. It's like, what the heck, you know? So it's really about the next generation, and it's about keeping our story as a town and our community intact, which Bart's really contributes to. So hopefully that helps.
I think the project is worthwhile. Again, I just wanted a little bit more information about the scope and the specifics.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, Tom Wolf?
Actually, it's Tim Wolf, but I have
Tim?
a brother named
Sorry.
Tom.
Oh.
I'm
Sorry.
Tom as well. So,
Tim.
Tim,
Yes,
just
sir.
a couple clarifications. I was actually here on the Presbyterian Church but Pastor Holland showed up, so I didn't speak on that. One of the buildings on your list is the Acacia's Nursing Home, 1959.
Mm-hmm.
That is the Ojai Community Hospital, correct?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I believe it is. It's a skilled nursing facility at Ojai Community Hospital, and that is scheduled, already received a demo permit to tear that down after, it's because this 60-bed facility was built out just above it a couple years ago. So,
Wait,
so-
the one on Montgomery Street?
You're talking about the one
No,
across from
I'm talking about.
Gables?
No, it's right across the street from the Gables. It's what was the
No,
Acacias.
I'm not talking about
No.
that one. I thought when I saw the picture of it, because I went back and looked at the meeting a couple meetings ago, at the front stairwell, it looked like the entry into the skilled nursing facility at the hospital. So if that's not the
It's on
case.
Montgomery
Oh,
Street.
that's not it.
Okay, so if that's not the case, I apologize with that. So, also, I just wanted to, I've heard you say this a number of times, that this is, structure of merit just relates to demolition. That's not the case.
No, it isn't.
It's not the case. It deals with alterations of the property. Any alteration of the property has to get, pull a permit by, has to go before the commission, your commission. So what that's what this says. That's what your letter says. So if that's the case, you do place a huge burden on people restoring their homes, fixing up their homes as far as the time delay. So, because it has to go before the commission, before it goes back to building and safety to get the permits. And then any permit that's pulled has to go before building and safety, normally does, that's not a big deal. But then building and safety has the prerogative of saying, gosh, if this reaches their level of interest as far as the structure of merit home, it has to go before your commission again. So there is a responsibility, or there is additional hurdles that they have to jump over.
I would like to point out that in the code itself, written in the code, is that when the application comes in, it will go to the next meeting of the HPC, and we meet every month.
Understood, understood.
So it's not something that would drag out because you're gonna have a certain amount of time getting it through the planning department anyway, so we've tried to streamline
Yeah, I
it.
understand. With all due respect, the permits tend to take longer when you add an additional authoritative body in there. So that's just my.
Okay, so Tim, one of the things I believe is in there, and Mara pointed this out to us earlier, that if it is a historic structures of merit, it comes to the Community Development Department, and the Community Development Director or Manager then determines whether he feels like it has to come before us? No? Is that, correct me, please,
So we
Mara.
have
That's only if it's a repair or maintenance issue.
Well, what I was trying to distinguish is that it sounded like anything that was done had to come before the HPC.
Oh,
to the
right.
Historic
No.
It's
Structures
deemed to
of
be an
Merit.
alteration.
If
That's
it's an
correct.
alteration, yes. If it's a repair or maintenance issue, it doesn't.
Yeah, and then, where's that line? I mean, I don't know.
It's
So,
all defined in the code, yeah.
well, it can be. I mean, it's not a black and white line between an alteration and a repair, and it's not there. So, but I respect, the ability for the city to do that. I'm just pointing out that it does add another layer of timing as far as to get a permit processed, so.
Mar, how many times, excuse me, how many times has been, and you've been here a few years, how many times has this kind of thing been brought that's going towards a historic structure or merit, been brought to the HPC? Because I don't remember.
We don't have a
Never been
historic,
there
we don't have this list.
Well,
so
that's
we-
what I'm going to say. So I've been on the HPC officially since September of 2014. Prior to that, I was the museum rep and audience member. So I've been around since the historic structures of merit was first mentioned, and I don't remember
Well,
that
no,
happening.
and I agree with you, because the historic structure, letter, the list of property hasn't ever been approved by the city council. So we're going into new, chartered waters here.
But I tried to point out it was all informally done. It wasn't formal, but it was informally done. When I sat here on the commission 12 years ago, we used to get all kinds of historic reviews on properties that had just informally been the planning department checking their list and then getting a evaluation done and bringing it to us for our
Understood.
comments.
Understood.
So it's been a part of the process going back for many years, but it was just more informal, and
Right,
now
and
they
this
want it.
formalizes it, exactly.
Yeah.
And this list, as it stands, has been on the website on and off, more on than off, since its inception. So it's not.
Into just recently.
Yeah.
Agreed, okay.
And again, going back to what Craig was saying, I've had people, call me and say, well, what's happening? Why is this being done at this facility? And I will call over to the city and it will be, well, it's not a landmark. It's not even on the historic structures and merit list. Not that it had any official capability, but it was kind of a checklist on, whether there should be certain follow-up. So, as Craig said, still kind of an informal type, check.
Great.
So,
I'm all about trying to increase efficiency with government versus adding another layer. But,
Well, there are several cities, there are a lot of cities in California that if your property is over 50 years old, you automatically go for a historic review. Just if you're over 50 years, your building is over 50. And our council, this was back when it first came up with them, when I first joined the commission back 12 years ago, they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to put that in because they thought that would really be onerous. So they said, well, what we need is just a list where you recommend properties that you think are historic that we can then evaluate and not make it for every city. So this was actually part of an attempt to
whittle down that.
whittle it down
Yeah.
a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
great, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak that hasn't? Here we go. Okay.
That's good to know, because I'd like to meet them.
Janice Prairie, and I own the Thatcher Library on Lion Street.
Yes. Hello,
But
Janice.
I had two, mine's more of a question. How many designated landmarks does the city of Ojai have
30.
that are already registered as landmarks?
There's 28, I believe, and then there's 2 county landmarks within the city limits.
Okay, because I was under the impression that the Thatcher Library was already designated as a landmark building, not as a,
No, we'd love to have it as a landmark.
no, you don't get it as if it isn't.
Well, it's a
We'll
pretty,
keep it as-
yeah, it's such a wonderful old building and has so much history, and you've taken good care of it there behind your house. And,
Well,
and a lot of people don't know what it is. They drive up Lion Street and they say, well, what's that? What's that old building
it
there?
has got a great history, and the residents of the city of Ojai cared enough of it that it is in its third location since it was originally built.
That's right.
And
It moved around.
And the other story is that my great-grandmother sold the lot that it sits on to the city for a $10 gold piece. And it cost me a lot more to buy it back.
Yes.
But what is to prevent one of these, all of a sudden your term has slipped my mind,
Historic structures of merit.
structures of merit from being converted to a landmark status? This is just for the benefit of the other people who have these homes or structures. Will there be eventually a move to have some of them turned into landmarks, given the landmark status, thus restricting what the people may do with them?
So Janice, there is only one landmark on that list that was made a landmark that wasn't first proposed by the owner, and that is the Nordhoff Grammar School property.
Okay.
There are no other, all of the others were brought to the city at the owner's request.
Okay.
And then a lot of them too were through a discussion, just like this. The owner may have proposed some change to it, and they came before the commission and talked about it, and the commission agreed to work with them, and they agreed to landmark the house. So sometimes it was through a mutual agreement, because there are a lot more advantages to being a landmark. There's a lot of tax breaks that you get. You get Mills Act property tax breaks if you're a landmark, which can cut off 60% of your property tax.
Keep talking, you're starting to
That's true.
to win me over.
Janice, I've had 2 landmark homes. My first landmark house was 718 Foothill in Myron Hunt, and now I'm at 520 Foothill in Austin Pierpont. And I did an appraisal last year, I guess. So I saw all the houses in my neighborhood, same square footage. The ones that were historic, and mine, because it's a landmark, was, gosh, almost 40% higher in the appraisal. It was huge. It was double a house a block away that was a really nice house with the same square footage, same acreage, same, bells and whistles. So it's a huge boost in property value, if that's meaningful.
It's a boost in property value, and then you get a significant tax cut for your property taxes, with the understanding that you're going to use that to maintain the property and keep it going. And a lot of those homes up on Foothill Road, the most expensive homes in Ojai, are landmarks. The people who live there have landmarked them.
Right.
And they take the tax break and they maintain them.
Okay.
So a lot of those beautiful homes, but it would apply also to a building like yours, or I also look at the Porch Gallery is another really historic
Yeah, the
home.
Montgomery House, yes.
Yeah, the Montgomery House, but it's not a landmark, and it's on this list, but,
Okay.
And Craig, this might be something that we want to talk to about the Downtown Historic District, because originally we had looped your property in there to be
Yes.
part of a district, but it was literally just like this little nipple that stuck up out the top, and it was like it seemed like it.
And I
It was-
asked to be excluded
Right,
from
well, we-
that, and then I was told, sorry, we just
Yeah, even
excluded you
be-
without you even asking.
Yeah,
And
even
that was
before
fine.
that, it was probably, we took that out because it kind of went up for, but if it was something that you were interested in that wasn't a full landmark, but it was something that if you were part of the district and the district passage, you would be able to have that Mills Act without an individual landmarking status. You'd be able to have those benefits without really having all the hoops you have to jump through to be a full landmark. So if it's something that you're interested in, just let Craig or I know, and we can always loop that back in. So.
No, that's okay, but I do appreciate the fact that the museum has included it in the walking tour. And on a Saturday morning, if I'm out there, then I add my 2 cents worth to the history, and sometimes it livens it up a little.
yeah. It's wonderful. I'm just so happy.
And every day I go out and I thank you very much for letting us have this piece of property to keep it safe, because it was designated to be torn down back in the 90s, and a 5-unit apartment building put in its spot, which meant that I would never see the morning sun 5 feet from my bedroom window. So I am really appreciative of the fact that the museum accepted our bid and sold us that property in order to help support the museum and to get that off, that building project going.
Yeah.
So it's all intertwined. And thank you all for listening to me and answering my questions. And I have to excuse myself. It's time to go feed the horses.
All right.
You know, and
Thank you very much. I love the Thatcher property. David Mason was a very close friend, so I know all the little stories. I've heard all the little stories from David regarding that.
On your chart there, though, or your list of properties, I was really sort of disappointed that it didn't have more detail on that Thatcher Library, because it was Ojai's first library.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
It was one of the first in Ventura County.
Yes, and I still have a copy of the statement that went into the Ojai Valley News, the Ojai at the time, saying, "Mr. Thatcher is returning from New York. Please pay up your pledges." Thank
Great,
you.
thank you,
Thank you.
Janice. Okay, do we have anybody else that would like to share some thoughts? No? Okay. Mara, anything else that we need to, so we've had public comments. We will close public comments, and moving along.
You'll close the public comments and consider moving the structures of merit list onto the city council.
Okay, just one thing. Sherry, anybody online?
No.
Okay, just wanted to check.
Also, Chair, when we're finished with this item, if we could take a break, please.
Okay, we'll take just a few minutes and come back. Oh, with this item? Oh, not now. Okay. So what we have then is the ability to have a discussion amongst the our commission. My question first off is, what are we looking for tonight? And how do we move forward, having several people that have come and asked that their property not be recommended as a part of the historic structures of merit? So I guess that's my biggest question at the moment.
Well, I would like to suggest that maybe we, I don't know if we need to have it come back next month to this commission, but there's some that had a legal issue that they wanted
Yes.
to be looked at, and there were some that were gonna write a letter that explained why they didn't think it should be on this because it wasn't historic anymore, even though it may have been at one time. So we would want to be able to receive those, because for my way of thinking, those are valid reasons why it shouldn't be on the list, but I feel that it's something that's really mandated by the law, by the city's general plan says that we need to have an inventory of potentially
does.
historic properties, and CEQA law, the state law, says that we need to have that in order to make decisions. But I do agree that in the cases where there's a legal case or pardon me?
I was just warning him I was coming to him next, so. After you finish, Craig.
Okay, I'm finished.
Oh, okay. So Commissioner Bisaccia, any thoughts?
My one thought is I don't think the information on these designations, even if somebody doesn't want to be part of it, should be lost, even if they're not designated as such, because what if things change in the future, so, the ownership changes, or, because there's certain people on the list that the public isn't seeing who've opted out. They've said no. And there's not necessarily a good reason except that they don't want to be part of it. But let's say that, I mean, it doesn't change the historical value of the thing. And that's one concern I have, because there's the sites of merit as legal entities and sites of merit as sort of spiritual entities that go through time, and I just wouldn't want that information to be lost in perpetuity somehow. That's all I have to say about
Great,
that.
thank you very much. Yes, Commissioner, Vice Chair McCann.
I just have a question. You mentioned inventory. Is there differences between inventory and sites of merit? Cities that, can you do either or is the inventory A-list as sites of merit?
Well, that's what we have in our code for the inventory, really. We have an inventory of historic properties, and they can be landmarks, so all our landmarks are part of our register or our inventory. But we also have this whole category of structures of merit, which nothing was ever put in that category because it was all handled sort of informally as time went along. But now we need to make it formalized. So that's part of the inventory. And then also your historic district would be part of the inventory.
I was just thinking of an inventory list that I saw from the city of Ventura that included Ojai, that they did a few years back, that had a list of properties that they felt were resources. And I was just wondering, like, why are some lists approved by council, other lists aren't, some lists are informal, some are, or is there like a
Sometimes it's called a
straight?
survey, and this kind of is a survey as well. We've surveyed the buildings and come up with this initial list, which needs to be updated from time to time because
Right.
properties will fall off and then other properties will be discovered. So the state actually asks that you update it every few years.
Okay.
Okay, Cindy.
Well, thanks, Craig. I didn't realize that the state had a requirement to have the structures of merit. You know, I thought it was just local, but, and I kind of wish that we'd been able to point that out earlier. But, you know, it really is about keeping the story of Ojai intact. And it is sort of depressing for me to hear people say, you know, it's my house, not I can do what I want. I didn't really hear exactly that, but it isn't, you know, we're just there for when we're there until we're not there anymore, and then somebody else comes along. And so to keep these stories and these properties, like you described, Rick, you know, the spiritual nature of Ojai is really important to the town. And, you know, my kids grew up here. They're really worried about all the changes. It's so crazy what's happened in the last 5 years, and we've lost so much, that this type of, you know, just acknowledgement of these houses and these buildings is really important. And, you know, for instance, like Help of Ojai, they've been on the property, what, 3 years, 4 years? Not very long, you know? And so it's, who knows where Help of Ojai will go next? I mean, Help of Ojai was here. So, you know, and if Help of Ojai doesn't want, I don't mean to single you out, Severo, but just saying, as an example, if Help moves to another location, then, you know, that's not a structure of merit. And even though it's a very historic building, who's the next owner that's going to maybe, you know, make some drastic changes or, you know, make some changes that take away from that story. So it's really about not the person that's in it, it's about who's coming next. And that's why I chose to landmark my houses on Foothill Road, because they tell the story of Foothill Road, and they really add to the character. Both of those houses added hugely to the character of Foothill Road. And I bought my house at 520 Foothill because I thought somebody was going to tear it down. It was a dump. I mean, it was trashed, and somebody would have bought it and torn it down at the time, I think, if I hadn't have landmarked it. So, that's, I just think about that story of Ojai, and I think it's really poignant right now with Lahaina having been such a landmark town. And yeah, fire took it out, so it didn't matter that it was landmarked because Mother Nature took it away. But for our town, I think we can save those stories, especially, with something like Bart's Books is a huge story, and add to the benefit of the California Building Code to help make Matt-type choices, to restoring that place.
Great, thank you all. So I kind of, I definitely would want to postpone any decision past tonight, again, because there are certain things that we want to get information on from our city attorney. There are other information there, again, just to use the example of what's affectionately known as the Neutra House. This is a house that, again, many people would have liked to have seen. Even one of our former commissioners who recently passed away, it was always a desire of his. And it seems like now we have the opportunity, kind of on a negative, positive way, is to be able to reach out to them and get some information on its current status, which pretty much you can only do by Google Earth at the moment. Just so we can update the current status and have that in our minds what it is, even if their bent is not to have that as a part of the historic merit. But their bent seems to be that we don't feel like, in its current condition, that it's still worthy of being historic structures of merit. So I'm always about getting more information on our landmarks. I joke that I joined the HPC so I could go tour people's historic homes. So fun, I gotta tell you.
But I wouldn't want people to think that this meant that they would lose their privacy, because it certainly isn't. This wouldn't affect that at all if they wanted.
No, not at all. Unless they think of me as
wanted
being
to, but it's
invasive.
up to them, yeah.
I never cross property. Yes, so, no, I agree with you. No intention on that. I'm just looking to, when you have an opportunity to learn more about something that we consider historic, to take advantage of it if we can. Even in talking about the Ayers family and what's buried where.
So did you want to continue it to let people write?
Well, not only to take in what we've heard today, then to get the information, any updates people have on their properties, and then also what was introduced to us that we were going to ask Matt on, because no one seems to know what on the religious properties exemption.
Oh, yeah, we need that.
So, I think to move forward in showing people that we are interested in information and on what has been said, to just postpone any decision for at least a month, so we can gain information and gain insight, and the people that we asked to come back and share with us what the current situation is, that we are following through with that invitation.
Okay, how do you want to communicate with people, that the people who came in tonight, who we suggested write, Craig described how to communicate that you didn't want to be on it, that it wasn't worthy, or,
Right, I didn't say if they, I don't believe
remember what you
that it should just be because they don't want to be on it. But
Right.
No.
I think that if they have reason to believe that our information is no longer valid,
No,
and
right.
that it's not historic, or that there's some new information about some court decision about religious facilities or something like that, that then those might be considered.
More, I do have a question. So, you know who the 6 are that said no. Can you tell us if they were represented tonight, or are these 6 other than the people who spoke with us tonight?
I don't know if they were all represented, but nobody submitted a reason other than that they didn't want to be. So, you know, as far as reasons, like it's, the building has been altered and stuff.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we had
So-
heard from them in any way, so.
No, I can see at least one here that wasn't represented. I can't say that they all were, no.
Okay, just trying to gauge on,
However, since I do have their contact information, these 6, they can be contacted to see if they can give us information as to why, although there may not be a reason why, as far as the
Right.
building structure being altered or, you know.
Because there's nothing in the code that gives us any authority to have people opt out. I mean, it's not in there that is a possibility like there is with the historic district. They can vote to object or to be in favor of it, but this doesn't, and for good reason, because it's meant to be kind of a trigger to allow the community acting through this board to take a pause and have a discussion about a particular property. So if a owner could just exempt it from that process, then that would invalidate the whole purpose.
yeah, and that's not what I'm saying. So all I'm saying is that we heard from several individuals tonight. I'm wondering if, say there were 6 that said no, did we hear 5 of them tonight? And there's 1 that we haven't heard from yet. Or did, you know, there's 6 out there that have said no, just as a census, and 6 that showed up that said, and so I'm just,
Chair Akins, I
Trying
did
to
not
get
go
a
down the
sense.
list of the 6
that's
as
okay.
as
that's
people were
okay.
speaking tonight, so I'm
Yeah, I
so
just
I'm not
wondered
sure.
if you had a feeling for that.
Yeah.
But I do agree with Craig that I want to learn more about these properties, and they're the ones that can give us the best insight, I think, the owners that currently own the property. So if you'd like me to make a motion, otherwise I'll
Do you
open
need
it
a
to someone
motion?
else. We need a motion, I think, to postpone it and have this discussion.
To
or-
continue till next meeting, is that?
Yeah.
Right, if you're
yes.
going to continue it to date certain, which would be whatever the date is in September, I can look that up. September 14th.
Whoa. Can't get any later than that. Okay, September 14th. So do we have I'll just ask, a motion from the HPC to continue this meeting until the 14th of September?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second, I'll second.
Okay, a second. Any discussion?
I do want to let the commission know something, and that is that the list is no longer on the website because the council, I guess, at some time had the city take it down because it wasn't an adopted list. And so I think Commissioner or Vice Chair McHatton said that it has been on the website, or maybe you said that it's been on and off.
It's been on and off throughout
Right,
the
so it's
years.
currently been off because it's not an adopted list.
I have tracked whether the Historic Structures of Merit has been on the city's website in spite of having council members say, well, it'll be gone tomorrow. And I have tracked that. So it seems to have disappeared with the last reconstruction or new construction of the city website. So yeah, that's why I'm smiling. Primarily it has been there in the past. But again, although not officially recognized. And every time we have a joint meeting, we pointed that out. So, okay. Any other discussion? Sherry, roll call, please.
Akins,
Yes.
McHatton,
Yes.
Convery,
Yes.
Bisaccia,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you all for coming tonight. We very much appreciate your being here. We especially appreciate any questions you have. If you have questions that come up between now and our meeting in September, please contact Mara, and she will do what she can to get you answers or to make sure that your comments are reflected in our meeting in September. Okay? But again, thank you for being here. I'm like, I've never seen this many cards in an HPC meeting.
If the commissioners could all turn off their mics and we take a 5-minute break, that would be great.
There we go.
I believe that first meeting I came to in 2013 had a lot of comments too. Probably more than
It did.
Which one?
just waiting for Sherry to get back. Okay. Oh, no, no. Yeah. Where you sit on that bench on Tuesday night, you can either be frozen or not quite so frozen, so, yeah. Okay, great. So welcome back, everybody. We are now going to do item number 2, Annual Historic Preservation Award. So staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair Akins. So at the July 13th Historic Preservation Commission meeting, the commission discussed potential nominees and selected candidates to consider as recipients of the Historic Preservation Award or Lifetime Achievement Award based on specific criteria that's in your packets. And we had 4 of the commissioners here at that meeting, and there were 9 different nominees. And since then, staff has received brief biographies on these 9, and they've been forwarded to you as a commission in your packet. And tonight, you are to discuss which ones will go forward to the council as recommendations for receiving the Historic Preservation Award or the Lifetime Achievement Award. So I'm going to pass that on to you. You have your list in here. I'm assuming you don't need me to go over it.
I don't think so. I think I'm grateful to the information that we received and that was put out in the packet for the individuals. Let's move over to, again, you can see that list there and the people that were recommended. The question has come up sometimes over the year is, what is the guidelines on the number of awards that are presented? And there are no guidelines on the number of awards that are presented.
That's correct.
It's just pretty much up to the Historic Preservation Commission. Sometimes there's 0 and sometimes there's more than 1. So that's up to us.
Oh, I will add that there's one person on the list that was recommended by Commissioner Walker that declined receiving an award or even being considered. And so their biography is not included in here, and that's Wendy Barker.
Yes, and Wendy, the executive director of the museum, said she was very much appreciated Craig's recommending her, had talked with Craig, very much enjoyed being with Craig and Mark Lewis in putting out an amazing, beautiful book with text and photos that are just, people should read it time and time again. It's just very, very nice. Okay, so typically we do the annual awards before doing any lifetime awards. So who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Do you want me just to talk about my?
Turn on your microphone.
You want me just to? Is the purpose of this for me to talk about the 2 that I nominated, or to? What's the purpose of my speaking?
The purpose of your speaking is to basically tell us if you're still supportive of those individuals, any insights that you might have that weren't represented in the information that was put forth in our package, or support that wasn't in the package, and at some point where you're leaning. So.
Okay.
And Craig, can I
Yes.
say something first? Can we separate them, since there's only one lifetime? Can we do that first and then do the preservation award second, so we have
Why don't we do
one
the
part of the
lifetime
business
one?
done? Anybody have?
Can I vote? No.
No,
That-
you can't actually, because you're the lifetime guy.
No,
But
I didn't mean vote on whether, lifetime's fine.
Previously, Craig, each of us read the bio that we submitted for the person that we've nominated, or the group or whatever. Just, read the bio and then have a little discussion. That's kind of how we did it.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
I just brought something for each one that I think would maybe tell you a little bit more about who they are and what they accomplished for this. So, if you want to just take one and pass it down.
Do you want to do the lifetime before we do the preservation award? So
Oh,
we can,
I don't know.
is that?
Is there a
something-
reason for doing that, or?
Well, because it's two separate things, and it's just thought we can get.
That's
some business
that's fine
done.
with me.
If I can have a copy of that, please, for the public, and also I want to remind the commission that if they're ever going to bring materials into the meeting, to get them to me as many days in advance as possible, so they can be put on the website and made copies for the public. Just, it's a legal issue.
Okay.
And that's why I brought extras. Oh, so,
Craig's already started, though, you know?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we wanted.
what?
You can have mine.
So do you want to go ahead and go with the lifetime and get that taken care of first, or what would you like to do?
Sure. I mean, I don't know.
Do you want to,
Vice Chair, what would you like to do?
can you tell us about Brian?
Well, his bio, I'll read his bio. And we all know about Brian, because Brian tells us a lot about Brian. Yay. Brian has served on the board of the Ojai Valley Museum for 13 years and acted as the lead of the acquisition of hiring the current and past executive directors. He's been chair of collections during his entire tenure on the board, treasurer for 12 years, and board president for approximately 3 years. Brian served as the museum liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission to provide monthly updates between the museum and HPC. Brian joined the Historic Preservation Commission in 2014. He served as vice chair to Chair Darwin McCready and then as chair since 2018. As commissioner, Brian was a member of the Council HPC Ad Hoc Committee that updated the Ojai Municipal Code on sections guiding the HPC. In his time on HPC, he made an effort to attend all commission meetings, including Planning Commission, all council meetings, all public meetings that affect anything historic. I mean, I think you should get the award just for going to all those meetings. Brian attended all council, more meetings, OUSD, and public meetings during the process of landmarking the Norduff Grammar School as the City of Ojai landmark. Brian worked closely with the residents of Taormina to provide information and answers to any questions during the landmarking, the process of the Taormina district. To support Ojai's downtown historic core, he spent 9 months talking with any parcel owners, individuals, groups, interested parties in relaying information and answering their questions. In 2012, Brian requested permission from the Ojai Valley Museum to resume an oral history program with stories and histories about the Ojai City and the Valley. Brian has worked with Joyce Robinson to conduct dozens of interviews to preserve the stories and the oral history of the Ojai Valley. When asked why he cares so much about our town and valley, Brian responded, "I've always loved local history, local as defined by where I am at the time. And for me, the history of this valley starts and ends with the city of Ojai. It's what I love. I'm dedicated in working with the fine people of our HPC, the fine staff of the city of Ojai, and working in conjunction with each member of the City of Ojai City Council to maintain the unique qualities of the city of Ojai that make it a wonderful place. And I do this with David Mason, my very close friend, in my mind and steps constantly. My latest contribution was setting up tours of the Smith-Hobson Carriage House. Turns out few folks, myself included, have never been in it. So I nominated Brian for the Lifetime Achievement Award for all of the reasons that are in this bio and all those meetings. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of hours of time, and the criteria, you know, for Brian are 2, 4, and 6, which are protection of historic and archaeological sites, historical research, and grassroots organizational efforts, which is a huge one, and you put hours and hours and hours into that. So I felt that really that time and that devotion deserved the Lifetime Award. That's it.
Thank you.
And now we get to nominate you or vote for you? Just like that?
Whatever you'd like to do.
Okay. All in favor? I mean, what do we, I don't remember the process.
Sherry, do we take a formal vote here?
Well, at the end, so read your recommendations on your staff report or on your agenda.
Don't we do the lifetime achievement separately, Sherry?
We do.
It doesn't have to
Oh,
be.
you- Oh, come on.
Yeah, we got it that way in multiple years.
The resolution will have all in it, lifetime and
Okay,
preservation.
so then now we should go through the regular awards and then make the resolution all at once?
I think you can do either. It doesn't say that you have to do them all at once or do the lifetime separate. So since you have one of this, and then you're going to choose from your, the preservation awards, then why don't you select this, take a vote, and then select from there and take a vote. It may not be all of the ones that have come forward. You might just select some.
So we should vote on each one as we go through? Or should we, I feel
No.
like we should go through all of them in the, is that what you just said?
Well, I was just saying, if you wanted to separate the lifetime achievement
Yeah,
from the preservation awards, you could do that. But after you do the one life, because you only have one lifetime achievement, take a vote on it, and then put that aside and go to your preservation awards, or discuss them, and decide if you're going to select from them and have several of them, take a vote, or how you're going to do that. And then take that vote. So you have two separate. Okay?
Okay, well, can we?
Okay.
And then they're going to go forward in one resolution
right.
with all the names on one resolution to the city council. Okay?
To the names that are nominated. Yep. Not all of them that are recommended.
A roll call or make a motion?
Who's making the motion?
You want to do it, Cindy?
I make a motion that we nominate Brian Akins for the Lifetime Achievement Award.
And I will second that motion, and thank you, Brian. I sit at home often in my pajamas forwarding to the good parts of the meetings, and I always see you in that audience, and I think, wow, I'm just, can sit here in my pajamas forwarding with my cup of tea, and here you are, hour after hour, and that's just, it's priceless. It's what you've contributed to our commission, and you've always come so prepared and so knowledgeable, so thank you.
Thank you.
Akins,
Yes.
Convery,
Yes.
McHatton,
Yes.
Basacha,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
So Akins, you just voted for yourself.
There wasn't anyone else to vote for.
You can vote for yourself.
I'm a vote person.
Okay, all right. Next.
So, yeah, that's why I voted. I have found a new role in sitting out there is that I am now, in case, if you see me leaning like this or like this, that's because I'm sheltering the person behind me on when those cold breezes are blowing. Seriously, it gets cold there. Anyway, thank you all. Okay, so now we're going to go to the awards presentation. We have a list of people there. I will go first just because I'm the first name that's listed, if you don't mind. So Joyce Robinson. Joyce has been on the museum, first came to the museum as working in the visitor center. Andy Bloom. How many people, do you remember Andy Bloom? Yeah, so Andy Bloom was the one who corralled her into coming into the visitor center, and then she came on the board. When we started in 2012 doing oral history interviews, I started that because I love family history and have talked to lots of relatives and recorded what I could. She volunteered. We surveyed people on the board for names, and then we asked those people that gave us names if they would go and be the people that be the interviewer. So we had a selection over the years that narrowed down to just Joyce. So if somebody gives me a name and it's deemed worthy of an interview, then I talk to Joyce, or Joyce gives me a name and I call and arrange it. Joyce does all the preparation for that interview. I record the interview and then ask my own questions, so it has worked out fabulously. As you can see, the last one we did was Jim Churchill. He of Pixie Orange fame, and to that interview with Jim, we asked him how Pixies came about, and it was such an emotional story that he says in all these years he's been telling it, he still can't stop crying. So just these kinds of fabulous things. So because oral history is one of the items called specified in our qualifications, and we've never had anyone that was recognized for oral history, I nominated Joyce. And in supplementary information, I gave you a list of the people that have been interviewed. So, any questions, or we'll move to the next person?
I think we have to choose the group. I think we have to go through the whole group and discuss them all, because if we vote, you know what I mean? Don't we have to talk about all of them?
Okay.
Instead of just voting yes or no? I don't know. I can't remember how we did it last time.
It's just such a big list.
Yeah. I feel like the last time, which feels like a long time ago, we kind of narrowed it down. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Nice
because
to
if we
hear the
start, if we
story.
vote like yes, 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 and then all of a sudden we get to the end of the list and we have like 10 people, you know, shouldn't we
Yeah,
talk about everybody first and then?
Yeah, I just kind of think if we could kind of go through the people that we want to continue the nominations, that then at the end of that, we can have a better sense for the number of people that we want to put forward and go from there. So again, and I'm just going by the list in the order. And so the next person down would be Cindy for the nominee
Yeah.
is Hotel El Roblar.
Okay, so you guys, you have the bio. I won't reread the bio like I did with Brian's, but
Thank you.
I know. But I did nominate them because I wanted, you know, in part, I think it's absolutely a worthy project. But the reason why I chose the nomination now is because the experience of going through the restoration of that building, and it is a restoration, they restored that building, was just a really ultimately pleasant experience. And I feel like it's kind of a message I want to send out in Ojai, because a lot of these projects haven't been that pleasant. You know, they've been combative. People haven't been prepared. They don't want to come into HPC. They don't look to us for any kind of information. It's an onerous process, and I think we saw a lot of that kind of energy in these public comments tonight about historic structures of merit. You know, they don't want to be burdened with it. But the experience, and I'm sorry, Craig, that you weren't on the commission during the process, because it was really an interesting process. With the owners of the El Roblar, they were accessible all the time. They gave tours to us whenever we wanted. They opened the doors. They called us. They asked us if, you know, if we had everything. They were asked to do a historic resources report at the 11th hour. You know, the project was so delayed because of these requests, and they did it. You know, I got a phone call saying, "Hey, we're happy to do it. We just wish we had more time." You know, they were like always pleasant, always happy to deliver what they needed, and always interested in feedback from historic preservation and what it meant to their property and how it fit in the fabric of the city and in the town story. And I feel like that is really rare, and I want to acknowledge it early on, because I feel like it sends a message, a good positive message to others who are working on the historic downtown core, to sites of merit, and to, you know, any kind of building that has that kind of cultural significance. You know, because there was a lot of discord with surrounding voices around the El Roblar Hotel, and I feel like it muddied the waters, because there wasn't discord with the El Roblar owners. There was the parking issue, which had nothing to do with us. But as far as the building, as far as the design, as far as anything to do with historic preservation, it was a really stellar experience, and I've never seen that before. So that's why I want to give them an award to really acknowledge that professionalism, the work they've done in the building. I feel like they truly brought it back from the many, many changes it's been over the years. I mean, it's been 100 years since it opened, 1920, and they got it in 2019. And they really brought the property, at least the front, quite a bit back to what the original design was, which did not, it's been changed. Well, it's had like 8 owners. So that's why I nominated them, and that's all.
Can I add something to that?
Mhm.
Just for anybody who doesn't know what happened, it was not the HPC that triggered an 11th hour historic resource report. It was the discovery of a Caltrans document that was done in that corridor, and it was the discovery of a state historic district that this area was a part of, and that's what triggered the CEQA to requirements to have a historic resources report. It was not coming from us initially, so just don't want anything taken out of context and thinking that it was us that did it.
No, we actually helped in, off the record or private conversations to help them, have it done in a timely way. And with a group that would do they did a very comprehensive report, very professional. And they paid to bring a lawyer, an attorney who specializes in historic property and historic restoration. He had fantastic information during the meetings, and I don't know what his hourly rate was, but they didn't have to do that. They really went the extra mile to make it work, so.
Great. Any questions for Cindy for El Roblar?
Well, I would just like to say that I have to humbly take a different point of view on that, because I would follow the issue very carefully. I'm very appreciative that they bought the hotel and that they are doing what they're doing. It's wonderful to get that hotel open. But I felt that they didn't necessarily bring the highest in the preservation standards to the design of the facade, just because of what was said in the historic report of them not satisfying 2 of the historic standards. And I think that the award should be for people who want to reach the highest standard. And I'm sure it's going to be a beautiful hotel. I don't deny that, but just from my understanding of it, I think I would have a hard time supporting it, but I'm just one person.
Fair enough.
Rick, do you have any observations on this one?
On which one?
El Roblar.
Oh, on the El Roblar? Not really, except since the last meeting, I was educated more on it, and it I wasn't initially in favor of it, but I grew to become more in favor of its being given the award for the reasons that Cindy said. I also kind of had issue with the arches on the building. That's what gave me pause. But I get what Cindy's saying, so I've sort of altered my views on it, I believe.
Okay,
Thank you.
Gina?
I do think that whole little area, the theater and the El Roblar, is such a big part of our community, that bringing those 2 buildings back and having them be as beautiful as they're going to be is really important to acknowledge that, whether it's this year or we agree that it's going to be next year. But I do think that like when we actually see it done and ribbons are being cut and buildings are opening, there's no doubt that what they're doing is so valuable to the community, and I'm very grateful that we have these people that want to bring it back to, and to have it be, I mean, that's at first, when you first get into Ojai, those are the, into the downtown, those are the first buildings that you see is the theater and the El Roblar as you come into the historic corridor of the downtown historic district. So I'm very grateful, whether it's now or later. I think that it's important. We acknowledge
Great.
it.
Thank you very much. So my interface with Ramin and actually the different owners is has been done quietly, has been done in talking with them and interfacing with them, because I went to, my penchant for going to any meeting that has anything to do with history, which means that I went to every planning commission meeting that had to do with El Roblar. And our meetings are so much better. Long, intimate detail. And people would raise questions on, the water flow on the water going and feeding this plant, what kind of plant it was, and they were just always there with questions. In talking with the different partners and meeting them and talking to them, they were open, they were available. Ramin was always available on any questions. I talked to Ramin early in the procedure, basically said, because I know Craig was, I was, suggesting that they do a historic resources report earlier in the process. My thought was, you say you're going to be historic, but you don't have a historic resources report. And so they acknowledge that. They plan to do that. They just got, pushed into doing it when the report was discovered. I think I looked at all of the different comments that were going on talking about the arches. I think I counted 11 different locations that had arches that are around this. One of the things that was deciding for me was, again in the tour, was that it was laid out and open that they plan to have a second story on there. And to me, having a second story and open patio type thing so people could go out and sit in that patio and be able to look downtown. I could see that with arches. I couldn't see that with the pergola. As in the downtown area. So I am looking forward to it. I have found them easy to work with. Informed, even down to the very details. Cindy said they brought in people that were skilled, that, when you're talking about all the questions that were put to them in the planning commission meetings on, just the littlest things on plants, on watering schedules. I go back again to the having the restaurant up front and, having it shaded because of the way the design was done. So I am very appreciative of what they've been doing. I sneak over when I'm at the museum or at my bike store there and take pictures to see what their progress is. And so I'm very supportive of them. So that's something to keep in mind. We will now move on to Cindy Convery for Kathy and Mark Hartley.
Oh, I didn't do a bio because I thought there were a lot of people, I thought I'd save them for next time because we
Okay.
had so many choices.
Okay,
So.
that makes sense. Perfect. Okay, so Mr. Basaccia, Mark Lewis. Now, just a question on Mark Lewis. I had the same question. I've heard that others had a question. I am not aware that Mark Lewis has received any award from the HPC in the past.
Yeah, I don't believe so either.
And
I went through the list you gave me, I don't
yeah,
I don't see it.
yeah. So
I
Gina
just-
was going to double check that for
I
me.
just kind of just assumed.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, in looking at the list of recipients of the award, I don't think he was on there.
No, and that's what we verified.
Well, my bio isn't very long and as impressive as some of these others, but I just hold to the recent publication of the book about Gray Gables and his contribution to that, and also I kind of forgot this, but wasn't Mark the museum representative to the HPC?
He was.
I don't know how I forgot that.
Huh?
Well, I have the president in here of the
Yeah,
board
so he was the
trustees.
museum rep. He was the last museum rep that used to actually come
Okay.
and sit there. And I think some people thought that was kind of, if you're president of the museum, you were the museum rep. And when I first started coming, David Mason was the museum rep, and then he stepped down so that I became the museum rep, and I was never planning to be president of the museum at that time. So yes, Mark would come and he would share updates.
So Mark's kind of a long time, as I see it, contributor to articles about relating to the history of Ojai, and this, recent publication done with our esteemed colleague next to me here. So I hold to my nomination, but I do see that there's other very valuable people on the docket here.
Okay.
And as far as David Berger goes for his,
Well, let's,
I'm sorry.
I just have one more,
Yeah,
get other comments on Mark.
okay.
So Mark also writes for other papers. He did a fascinating article that was actually in one of the Santa Barbara magazines, not the Santa Barbara magazine. And it was an article informing the people of Santa Barbara that their downtown architecture that was put in place after the earthquake came in and destroyed everything, I'm going to move this back, was attributable to downtown Ojai itself. I loved that he was doing that
Really?
article in a Santa Barbara magazine.
Oh, wow, he's getting Ojai in there no matter where he goes.
Yeah.
And also, as I had mentioned before, I was always impressed with his article after the Thomas fire about, it was called Saving Dronheim, and it was about the historic property that's not in the city limits, but that was built and designed and owned by Major Drawn, who was quite a figure in Ojai, and he was the Ojai water engineer, and he actually drew the banner for the Ojai Valley News that was used for umpteen years. And also, it was his son Jack, who is his eldest son Jack, who is the boy on the library. So that's a real. It was a really insightful article relating to Ojai through the tragedy of the Thomas fire.
Okay.
Anyway.
And David Berger?
And David Berger.
Can I just say a couple of words about Mark? Because I've worked with him on
Definitely.
3 books and several or a couple of magazine articles for the Ojai Quarterly, and I just want to support what you said about his incredible abilities to research and to express history in a very upbeat and interesting way that always draws readers in, and his take on the history, like you were saying, being able to pick out some of these things that people might not think about, but Mark draws our attention to it, and his stories have gone all the way from Wheelers up in Matilla Canyon to 2 Dot Studios out in the East End to the arcade, and not only that, but Mark also has written and curated many of the museum's exhibits, so he's really done an amazing job to promote history.
Yeah.
Thank you for fleshing that out, because I was unaware of those things, so thank you.
Okay. David Berger.
So David Berger, since I nominated him, which I still hold to the value of the rehabilitation of the theater, kind of like what Gina was saying is, central to the downtown. A few things were pointed out to me in the interim about sort of the difficulties around, I guess, dealing with him through the process and how it was kind of like pulling teeth. So even though some of the positive effects are still true and valid, I've sort of downplayed my enthusiasm for that nomination.
Okay.
So that's about all I have to say about it.
Let me just chip in something that was recently done, and we're starting to see the effects of that decision, and this was actually a decision that was made in conjunction with the HPC and included a private tour and demo, and that is the lighting structure that was put on the front of the museum. That's now in place and functioning. So that was a long discussion, somewhat a detailed discussion, and we had the opportunity to do a demo. So we all came out at 8:30 at night or something when it was dark, and they put the light up there. It is what is it? Krypton. I had to remember which superhero.
Excuse me, are you talking about the theater?
Theater.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're talking about David Berger. So the light in there is krypton gas. I believe that's what it was. And the only marquee, I think, that is similar to that's done that way in that size.
Hmm.
So.
Well, I, as one who goes back a ways and used to go to that theater and remembers the former owner, Wayne Glasgow, dancing drunk in the early morning hours on the tables at Caro's, I would like to just remember the history that those letters used to have plaid in them, representative of Mr. Glasgow's Scottish heritage.
Okay, great. Any other comments on David?
No.
I would like to say something.
Yes.
I think that it's a very big undertaking. And when you find things like he found with the water damage in the walls and having to redo the stucco and everything just keep coming to a stop, I have to be compassionate to his frustrations. So pulling teeth, it's like, I don't know. I don't know how I would be if I knew, okay, now I have to do this, now I have to do that. There's so much to do and so many little intricate details, so many things in place, and he's hired some really good people. I think the end product is going to be really, really great. I just think that you can't fault someone for their frustrations, because doing a project of this scale with this sort of damage in with local politics and ordinances and everything, it's a big undertaking. But I like I said, whether it's this year or next year, I do think that the recognition is really important, and I think the theater is going to end up being something really spectacular if he just keeps going in the direction he's going. So
I have thoughts.
Yes.
I have a very big difference of opinion on that, which is, I felt that they were unprepared. They came in several times. They argued. I don't think it was, I think they would have been thrilled to death if it wasn't a landmark and they didn't have to do any preservation at all. I think this was just an onerous process for them, and they wanted to do, I remember the colors that they presented, which we had a big talk about Mission Revival colors, and how charcoal gray doesn't kind of work there. and it was pretty much of a fight down the road. And even the lighting, I don't know if you recall, Brian, but they had it 3 or 4 times brighter than what it is now, and we insisted that they do that lighting test. It wasn't like, hey, let's do a lighting test so we can see what it looks like. It's, everything was a bit of a struggle. And I don't think that's one of the challenges on doing a project like that is attitude and ability and doing your homework, on what type of building you're doing and what's the fit. And that's where my challenge is with them.
Yeah, I also think it's very early in the process.
Yeah.
Very early in the process. I think, as Craig might have said when he was talking about something, the inside is still, I don't think, I have no idea what's going on the inside. And so, like I said,
I don't either.
I think it's a little early.
It is a little early, but I agree with you that I think so often we were giving really good advice that wasn't being heard because they were coming in so hot and frustrated. But you don't know the backstory of why they're hot and frustrated. But it was that it seems like even when we were on their side, we were often treated as adversaries. So it was kind of a strange thing. But I do think that I'm hopeful for the end project. So I do think it's early though.
Yeah, and we had the big difference when they came to redoing the front, and then that decision was taken actually over by the city inspector, who made that decision.
It's the building official.
Building official, okay, and so they went with it. It was interesting to watch the front crumble while we were waiting, and then the scaffolding went up, and then the next door and now with the plaster back in place, to my untrained eye, it looks very nice. I will also point out, in talking with Carrie through the process, Carrie was taking detailed pictures on every step that was taking place. So we do have some history behind it to take for the future. Because that was a big concern on me, was anybody really documenting the process? Okay. Craig, Janice Cash.
Okay, Janice Cash.
Spelled correctly here.
She lives here in the Ojai Valley, and she's college. She used to teach down, I think, at one of the colleges, and she's taken her time in her retirement years to take an interest in Ojai history. She has a web or a Facebook page called Janice Cash, Forgotten History and Memories of Ventura County. Her articles are always very well researched. I'm always impressed with how much she's learned and that she communicates and that I learn from reading them. And she always seems to find a lot of kind of unusual pictures that I've never seen before. I gave you an example of just one of the articles on Henderson Field, just so that you could get a feel, if you don't read her posts, of the kind of thing that she does. So I just feel for her volunteer research and education of the people of Ojai on the history of their community, and the opportunity for them to jump in and add things and have a conversation about it. I think she has really done a lot to promote interest in Ojai history.
Does she work with the museum as well?
She does not work with the museum. I have followed her work since she started posting. I'm also, but her postings are, I don't know if they're exclusively on Facebook. I'm not sure if I've seen it.
She said they weren't. She said that she also posts them elsewhere and gets them into like newsletters, maybe for the Ventura Museum. I'm not really, don't quote me on that,
Okay.
but she did say that she had other outlets for some of her writings.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, because I've watched her, I often will copy the, right-click, save, and then PDF the article so that I can include it in the museum archives. Her work is, a lot of her work is on the Facebook group called The Other Ojai. So I'm wondering if you're not a Facebook person, and even if you are a Facebook person, if you're not a member of The Other Ojai, which can be a little selective at times. All of us qualify for being on there, but she frequently posts that. It seemed like almost once a week that I was seeing her articles showing up. As Craig said, her articles are very interesting. I will read through them and go, I didn't know that. And the pictures are fabulous. She just has a great background and great experience in presenting and putting forth information. So that is my experience with Janice Cash.
And the last couple is Tiffany Rochelle and Paul Hibbler. And back in 2016, they purchased the 1105 North Signal, which is landmark number 29 now for the city of Ojai. It was designed by Fred Hummel Jr., who grew up in Ojai. He attended Nordhoff High School. He became an architect, and he was quite an accomplished architect that did a lot of buildings around Ventura County in Southern California. And one of his projects that he's best known for was he was the project manager for the Reagan Library. So he did a lot of the architectural work on that, but he also helped to manage the project of that. He's got several houses around Ojai. One of them, if you drive on Cuyama Road and you look up to your right as you're going to Miners Oaks, there's the B.D. Douch property where he has his gardens. Well, there's a modern house right on the hillside. That was one that Fred Hummel Jr. did. And this house was made for the Dixon Kellys, who were very important in the music festival. So Dixon was the head of the music festival board for several years. And as part of that, he built this beautiful home, which you see these pictures of, designed by Fred Hummel. And many of the musicians, like Lucas Foss and other famous musicians, would stay there with him. And they had a number of satellite concerts and fundraisers and other things at that house that really made it a part of the music festival community. Anyway, the house was going to be bulldozed. The woman that owned it decided she was going to bulldoze it and build another house, and there was a small uprising of community members that didn't want to see that, and the woman had a change of heart and just put it on the market. And this couple came along, as I pointed out here, they always thought they rescued the house, and they restored it, and then they nominated it themselves to be a landmark so that it would stay a landmark and be enjoyed by people in the future. And I thought that's the kind of thing we want to accent and reward too in the community.
Yes, I think that if we had changed community development directors, that it would have been what's that word we were defining today? Ministerial decision and gone. That's what we were fighting against.
May I comment on that?
Yes, of course.
One thing I like about this this couple is when we were touring it, when we were talking about their landmark process, there were many events. I think I was in your car. They were bringing in people and things were coming in and out, and so that they're keeping with the spirit of the property, of opening it to the community for different events. And not that you have to do that with a landmark house, but it's really nice when they, like what it was for, they were very active at the music festival. Having these people continue that spirit is something that I think is really nice for the community.
Okay, any other questions on that? So, the question now is, let's go back to the list. Okay, So we have, still on the list are, of the people that were spoken about, we have El Roblar, we have Mark Lewis, we have David Berger, Janice Cash, and Tiffany Rochelle. So am I correct that I see 5?
No, you also have Joyce Robinson.
Oh, and Joyce, sorry, I started late. So 6, okay. So looking at that list, do you have any thoughts in mind on the number of people we should recognize this year? And I do like this suggestion that was made. I think Cindy mentioned that in possibly moving some to next year. So thoughts from the commission on the number that you think we should go for this year?
Well, it seems like we might want to move the ones that aren't done yet to next year, because they could put in a request for a job change or something. We never know what could come in, and could change the whole perspective on the thing, and then it would look kind of weird that we gave them. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that I would feel more comfortable if the project were finished, they'd had their grand opening, and we all get a chance to see it. Maybe my mind will change too if I get a chance to see it, and I can see how they've added little things to it to bring the historic character back. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Can I speak?
Of course.
Okay, so if we look at 2022, we had 2 lifetime and 1 yearly. Then if we go 2021, we had 1 lifetime and 2, and 2 yearly. So I'm trying to think of what we normally do. Have we done this many? We have, 2020 was 2 yearly, 2 lifetime. 2019 was 2 lifetime and 4. That was when you got 1 too. 4 yearly. 2018 was 2, 1 lifetime and 2 yearly. And then from then on, yeah, just been a couple here and there, but.
So it's usually 2.
Yeah, so it seems like the biggest year that we had was the one, I think, was it with Craig? And yeah, there was 1, 2, 3, 4 people. It was Thais and Cynthia and Diva and Elizabeth. Those were the, did they write the book?
Weren't they together?
Yeah,
Yeah, they were one together. They did the fire book.
right, the fire book. They're listed separate, but they were together.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like 3 or 4 is our normal in a bigger year.
Okay. We have
Not that that matters, but I was
6.
curious on how many, what's the biggest number we've had, so.
Biggest number. So I'm saying Mark Lewis.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Mark Lewis. And then I'm between Joyce, Janice, Tiffany. Well, who else is there? Oh, they're all Roblar. So the idea is to have the project be finished and then reconsider? Is that the feeling of everybody?
Yeah,
Or,
I think it makes sense from a standpoint of just waiting till it's done.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's done.
yeah,
No,
a lot of it.
not that it's gonna
A lot of my
change, but-
motivation was the experience compared to what I described as the Ojai Playhouse experience. And I truly wish that you had been part of that, because there was a lot going on, that you probably didn't have access to. But, yeah, I know you did.
I had
but-
interaction with them,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
liked them, and I thought they
Yeah.
were,
Yeah.
again, I wish them well.
Yeah, no, I know, but I wish you'd been part of it too.
So
No
I,
shade.
I personally do not lump Hotel Roblar in with the Ojai Playhouse, because again, we don't have definition on what's going to happen in the Ojai Playhouse, and having sat through the planning commission meetings, there's so much detail that was put in doing the Hotel El Roblar. So I think the Hotel El Roblar, if you're looking at it from a process standpoint, from a planning standpoint, I think they are ahead of David. But again, they are people with, I don't know how much they have more partners, more experience, perhaps more funding, I'm not sure. So they have the people that have been able to get that and put that in place. So, I mean, if I was, I would give if I was looking at the two, I would give Hotel Roblar a plus and maybe David a delay. I personally think Mark Lewis is an excellent candidate. I am going to lobby for Joyce Robinson. Again, she's been doing this since 28 interviews over the past 11 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 of these people have since passed away, and that's something you're never going to recapture. And again, that is called out as one of the items, specified items that are in our code.
Can I go?
Yes.
I'm in favor of Joyce for this year and Mark and Tiffany. My reasoning is Joyce's work is just more accessible. I don't know of the other person. I've never seen it, and if it's limited to where I can see it, and Joyce having it be more public, I like that, but either way is fine, but I do want to acknowledge Joyce, and then Mark Lewis, of course, and Tiffany for all the reasons. I mean, they brought that house back from a demolition situation and restored it so beautifully, and then came to us wanting it done, and I think that is something that we should always encourage here. So those are, if I was to pick 3, those are the 3 that I would go through this year.
So say that again, Joyce and.
Joyce, Mark, and Tiff, and the Humble House.
And what?
The Humble House,
Oh, the Hummel House, okay.
but I'm just one person.
I could support that.
Yeah, me too. Rick?
I would vote for the El Roblar, but I like the idea of waiting on it. So I'm in favor of Mark Lewis and the Hummel House and Joyce Robinson. These all seem like
So actually, you
strong.
made me think of something about the El Roblar that can I say it before I forget?
Yes.
Which is that, when they open, they're going to open in, what year is this?
2023.
They're going to open in the fall of 2024. So if they did get a Historic Preservation Award, it would be publicized during that opening, and I think it would benefit the historic downtown core, the Historic Preservation Commission, and my goal, again, was to give acknowledgement to a positive experience. And so in the bigger picture, which is what I'm really looking at, and with all the discord that goes on in the city of Ojai, that was kind of my driving idea, was that these guys went the extra mile, and there is, I don't know how to describe it, an undercurrent, a Barbara Bowman conversation about how much they suffered and how horrible it was and what they were put through, which I don't find to be the case, and I don't think they would find to be the case, but I feel like that message would be erased, and it would be more of a positive takeaway.
Are you saying for this year or next year?
No, for this year, so that when it opens, they have it and they can say, grand opening, award. I get that the timing is off, and it's confusing too. So I haven't found that balance, but anyway, I just wanted to erase the negative, the naysayers behind it, who are also undermining the historic downtown core and creating fear with the sites of merit, like that, all that fear that came in here tonight, because of lack of education about what it really is. So these are, they're kind of bigger questions to be
It's usually the December meeting?
Say that again?
What's the month that we usually,
December.
it is December?
First meeting in December, which is
Yeah.
oftentimes the only meeting in December.
Yeah, and they're gonna open, they're scheduled to open next summer, probably September. So that was my underlying, motivation, was to, change the narrative. We could flip a coin.
Okay, well, shall we go person by person? So I will make a motion to nominate Joyce Robinson for an annual award. And is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of that?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we have one down. Mark Lewis. Do we have a motion for Mark Lewis?
I'll move.
Yeah,
Okay,
second.
Craig, second
Uh,
by Cindy. Okay, all in favor of that? Or is it okay if we do it this way, or should we get Sherry?
This is fine.
Aye.
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 Okay,
Okay, so we got Joyce, we got Mark.
we got Joyce, we got Mark.
Wait, you skipped the old Roblar.
Well, I'm just
Oh, I thought
going
you were
the
going
ones
down
that
the
I
list.
haven't heard any reservations
Oh,
on,
okay.
so.
I thought you were just going down the list.
Yeah, no, so, okay, so those are two that we've got that, no problem. So the other ones that we've discussed are, I think, Hotel Roblar, Tiffany, these are ones that have been mentioned. Those are the two that have got,
And that should be Tiffany and Paul, her husband, too. I mean,
yes. Yes. Yeah, again, to me, when just a late add to that. So when she took us on the tour, the only disappointment I had was I didn't get to go to the bomb shelter. But, if you went through the kitchen, the cabinets that were in the kitchen, kind of in that back aisleway behind the kitchen, were all original.
Didn't we go to the bomb shelter?
Don't tell me if you did. No, I'm
I
just
think
kidding.
so.
What was the room that you went down and around and then into that, was that thick concrete? When you
I don't remember.
Oh,
Yeah, it sounds like, I don't know.
so,
Anyway,
so, we have,
who do we have already?
we have Joyce and Mark
And Mark, okay.
already. Okay, so then we have, Hotel Roblar's been discussed, Tiffany and Paul has been discussed.
Janice Cash.
Yeah, Janice Cash.
I mean, and just personally, the article that you shared with from Janice for Craig Walker to say there are stories that he hasn't heard and photos he hasn't seen, that's saying something. So, I would hope that maybe the museum, got a hold of her and maybe suggested another place for her stories to go, so more people can see it, because I would like to read those, and I think there's a lot of other people who would too.
No, good part. I will bring that up to, with the museum.
Whoops. Well, could we vote on Tiffany and Paul?
Sure. So Tiffany and Paul and Hotel El Roblar. Again, yeah, Janice Cash is putting out something that I think the museum could take advantage of
Oh, yeah.
in linking
Elevate
them
it.
as a
Yeah.
partnership. Again, I'm just worried about, I belong to all kinds of Facebook groups that anything that has anything to do with history, whether it's in Ojai, Ventura County, Oxnard. And so I see her works, and she says that they're out there, and I believe they are, but I only tend to see them on
Well, when I talked to her, she said she would be willing to work with the museum to get some of them on ojaihistory.com. So that'd be good.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I will follow through on that, so. Okay, so Hotel El Roblar and Tiffany and Paul, I think those are two that are well-known within the community, or more well-known. So I guess, let's find out. H is before T. So let's look at Hotel El Roblar. Who would be interested in supporting a nomination this year, right?
I would like to support it for this year for reasons discussed, which is
Okay.
that it will be part of the opening and hopefully support our commission and support the experience for others to feel that it's a positive experience and not a negative.
Well, it's an endorsement of the historic,
Of the process.
yeah, well,
And
of the
the-
hotel being historic
Yeah,
in
and
that they've been recognized for
Bringing
that.
it back, yeah, and I think I said something in the bio that Ramin said about telling the story of place, which they're doing more of, and anyway.
Yeah, they have a great opportunity on that. Okay. Any
I'd like
thoughts?
to reiterate the waiting till next year when they open, so we have the finished product, I think.
Yeah, that's, okay. Okay, so, we got those, let's, okay, so the question is there a motion then for them to be nominated for this year?
Can't decide, Craig's making me confused.
Okay, think about that,
Let's do
okay.
Tiffany first,
Yeah, think about that, and we'll jump back to
Okay.
Tiffany and Paul.
because I'm on the fence.
Okay, Tiffany and Paul, you weren't here, so you didn't get to, have you been in the home?
I have,
Oh, okay.
not since they've
Oh.
bought it, but I was in it before.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I felt like that probably looks exactly the same based on
Yeah.
our tour.
I think they restored the artwork and everything.
Yeah, yeah, it was amazing. Have you ever been in the home, Rick? No. Okay. You know which one we're talking about though, right? All the way at the top. And I like, many of us were around when that property was close to being bulldozed. Oh, so close. Okay, so Tiffany and Paul, do you have a motion? Do you want to make a motion for Tiffany and Paul?
I'll move for Tiffany.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion, Craig, second, Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we have 3.
Okay, I still want to make a motion for the El Roblar, because I still feel like it's important now. I don't know why. There's just something inside me telling me this.
Okay, we'll make a motion.
I make a motion.
Okay, I will second that motion.
Thank you.
So moved by Cindy, second by Brian. I think personally, we've had the most interaction with them. Okay, so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. 2 of us? Okay.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? Okay, 2 versus 3 opposed. Sherry, can you see
Sherry, were you
us?
able to see those names, or would you like me to say them?
No, I have them.
Thanks.
Can she see us?
She can.
Yes, I can.
There's a camera.
Known Sherry forever. Okay, so do we have, what do we want to do? So we've done 3 here. We have Joyce, we have Mark, and we have Tiffany and Paul.
Yeah,
Are we good with that?
yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, of course, you can make a motion on Janice.
move that we include Janice in the group.
Okay. Second, is there a second for that?
I couldn't hear that. Somebody wasn't talking in their microphone.
I moved that we nominate Janice.
Okay, and I asked if there was a second for that.
I heard that part.
Okay, I don't think we have a second for that. So, we do have an assignment. Chair Akins is going to talk with the museum, and, because we could get a new website, let's introduce some new people to it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So it's time for the final motion.
yes.
I'll make a motion that we nominate.
Did you guys discuss the Playhouse Theater? You didn't
Yeah,
do-
we discussed everything.
But you decided not to vote on that one?
Right,
Yep.
yeah.
I think
So that one was taken off the list, basically, along with Kathy and Mark Hartley.
Yes. I would say.
I think we're all
Got that,
agreed.
Sherry?
Do now, yeah, I didn't have it before.
Thank you.
And Hartley's and Berger being delayed? Yeah. Okay.
And Janice, because the motion, there was no second.
Right, exactly.
There was
Which
no
is a
second.
different, which is a different story for Janice Cash than it is for Wendy Barkley, or Barker, and Kathy and Mark Hartley, and the theater. They're all different situations, but they're all off the list, or they're all not moving forward.
Yes. Okay.
So a final vote then for the three.
So, okay, so it's Tiffany and Paul. Okay, so we have the
It's
three
actually
then?
four.
Four?
Now we have, sorry, Sherry just thought there were four. We have Joyce Robinson
Right,
and Mark Lewis
right,
and the Hummel House.
That's right.
right.
Yes.
Okay. Are we okay with staying at three?
Yes, I do think you should bring this person back again next year after they have a chance to work with the museum and get their stories out to a bigger audience.
Yeah.
And I do think that our two anchors, as we pull into Ojai, would be definitely something I'd like to see come back next year as well.
Okay. So we agreed? Huh?
Can I make a motion
You
that
make a
we
motion.
nominate Brian Akins for the Lifetime Achievement Award, Joyce Robinson, Mark Lewis, and the owners of the Hummel House for the Annual Historic Preservation Award?
Who was that?
Oh, do we do a whole?
No, you did it.
No, no. Was that Craig that seconded?
That was Craig.
Craig, you need
Okay.
to talk into your microphone, I can't hear you.
Second.
Okay, you want to call, roll call for us, please, Sherry?
Akins?
Yes.
McCatton?
Yes.
Convery?
Yes.
Basasha?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Okay. We still got business we have to do, don't we? Wow, just broke a record. Okay, what's next? Okay, we did 1, 2, and 3. Okay, number 4. Gina.
Number 4 is the proposed local downtown historic district ad hoc committee's progress report. On July 13th, at the HPC, Commissioner Walker provided progress on the local DHD ad hoc committee, where he stated that he and Vice Chair McHatton are going to dedicate much of the summer working on this item in preparation to present to the HPC in the fall. And so since then, if there's a report tonight, I'll turn it over to the commission.
Okay, so like Cindy mentioned, the fire in Maui, it's, one of the reasons why I wanted to be on the historic preservation was after the Thomas fire, because I saw the entire community come together and work together to get through it. And I just think that that's how I imagine the downtown historic district, because it is all of ours. It's our story, it's our family story, it's our future story, and it's something that's really important. And there are wildfires that can take out of town. There's also smaller things like electrical fires or upkeep of costs and cost rising on trying to maintain historic buildings. And one of the things that we're working on with the Downtown Historic District is providing a code change so businesses or property owners in the Downtown Historic District could utilize Mills Act and the State Historic Building Code. But with Mills Act, you would have a tax break that you would be able to use to maintain that electrical, to maintain that roof so there's not leakage, to keep your tenants happy and your buildings nice and your home, the properties in the Downtown Historic District. I struggle with negativity because there just seems to be so many positives. I know that Craig Walker, we're talking about all the different overlays. There's 5, maybe more overlays in the downtown area. And so we are looking to create a downtown historic area overlay that's just one, combining all of them and making it so it's slimlined and it's easier, and hopefully getting fees waived for people who are in the Downtown Historic District. And to really write it up so it's clear and understanding about how you would never have to see us or see us, depending on what you're doing, and having an understanding and having it not be superfluous if you're coming to other bodies, not having to come before us, not having it be redundant. So that's what we're working on. We're tightening up the map. We're listening to what the community has talked to us about, and so that's our goal right now, is to tighten the map up and to work on the overlays. And it would be a good time if anybody wants to have input to contact through Mara, me, or Craig. We'd be happy to have conversations with you, hear your input, hear your ideas. This is our community, and it's easy, with Craig and I, on Zoom, but we are only 2 people, and we are trying to be as thorough, and we're trying to listen to everybody. But community input is really important, and so anybody who wants to talk to us, we would really appreciate that. So please just, Maura can give our contact information to you. And we'll be working on this over the next month or so, and I'm hesitant on bringing it back in September if we're going to be bringing back the sites of merit. So it'll either be September or October, depending on how that looks. So that's all I have to say.
Great. So that was an invitation to the public to, if anyone has any ideas, to bring that to you, Craig, or to Mara.
Right.
Excellent. Excellent. Any questions on that item? No, tiring out. Okay. Then informational items. Future agenda items.
So the future agenda items, it's item number 5 on our agenda. For September 14th, I will be coming back with resolutions for the preservation awards. And then after that, after the resos are approved here, they'll be forwarded to the city council. And downtown historic report or not, we'll find out before the next agenda is prepared what's going to be on the agenda for that. Ojai Day is coming in October. That's all I have for you right now.
Okay. Anybody have anything else that they think should be added to the future calendar?
How about our meeting with the attorney who's going to talk about CEQA, and he was going to come and do a workshop with us?
Right, that's on the pending projects, and so we'll see about that getting scheduled. I did forward to you some CEQA information that was provided by Gina, and the attorney asked that that get forwarded to you first. And so has everyone received that?
Right.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure whether some of the other ones we had access to. Did you ever hear back?
I spoke to the field officer who, I would like to have this be maybe in a future agenda item. For $1,000, it would be the whole commission, actually the whole city, and you'd have access to every one of their talks. And it's really, there's so many great, valuable talks, I think, just for, not just the historic preservation, but many other people within the city. So we could do it individually. We could ask, we talked about having a budget for education. I don't know, it would be less for that one thing. But if it's something that the commission feels like we'd like to talk about, having access to all of their upcoming, they usually do 3-part seminars that are really informative. So I don't know if anybody would want to try to see if we can have an education budget or talk about it in the future, but.
Who was the body that?
The California Preservation Foundation.
Oh.
So yeah, I think we should put a proposal into the city. I mean, they're not spending a whole lot of money on the HPC this year compared to a certain other commission. So I think that's a great thing to have available to us. Thank you, Gina. Okay, planning report. Mara?
I don't have a planning report for you. I have provided an agenda and staff reports and your future agenda items.
Okay, so you were just shuffling papers to look busy?
Actually, I was taking copious notes.
Oh, okay, good for you, thank you. Okay, commissioner comments. So I just wanted to give 2 updates. First update is last night, Craig and I went to the Ojai Unified School District School Board meeting. We did that, and I made sure people knew, at the request of the chair of the board, Atticus Reyes, and at the request of Superintendent Knox. She was the one who reached out to me last week. The reason for that request to us was to the HPC was last night they reviewed, these are items 7.1 and 7.3. On 7.1, they reviewed the Superintendent Knox reviewed the information that they gleaned from the surveys that were sent out to the families and the community, as well as the information that came from the 4 sessions that they held, the hourly sessions, with fabulous information. And so she replayed that on the different things. The San Antonio school has been surplus, or well, not officially surplus, but it is not being used at this time. So they looked at different things in order to bring benefits to the community based on what they'd heard, as well as looking for funding sources if that takes place. But we were there, so they, as a part of looking for what's affecting the campuses that they're looking at, whether it be the Nordhoff Grammar School property or the Matilla Middle School property. And so they invited the HPC in to talk about the historic properties. And so she contacted me. I asked for permission to bring Craig. She said, of course. And so we met with them last night. It was a good meeting. I basically talked about the information that they had available that was on the historic natures of the property, items, locations within the property, and reminded them that that information was part of a report that they alone had privy to, or should, because of the sensitivities that were in it. And so that gave them the opportunity to look at their own historic resources report, because oftentimes, as I said last night, people look at who paid for the historic resources report, and is it a gun for hire on the people doing it. And so in this case, I was pointing to them that was their report. It was information that was originally put together for them and required by the state for CEQA passage. in order to tear down the cafeteria built in 1947 and then rebuild that cafeteria. And then Craig, you want to just tell us a little bit about what you talked about last night?
Well, it was mostly answering questions.
We love questions.
Part. I think they're having a little trouble with the communicating with us, because I think they, even though we offered to help them and give them information and use the resources that we have to help them to get benefits out of their historic buildings and learn how to care for them, I think they still are having a little trouble with the whole idea of another agency in the city that they have to deal with. So I don't know where that goes. That's something for the 2+2 that the city council and them get together to work that out. What is the relationship between the city and the school board? But yeah, I felt good about it at the end.
And in talking about the 2+2, that would be 2 city council people and 2 of the school people. That's what they were thinking. That's what the council was, yeah.
Okay,
That's what the council was discussing at last Tuesday night's meeting
Okay,
at the
but our
very end.
minutes say otherwise.
Yes.
Okay.
And-
Right, but they had talked about a 2+2 committee going way back several months. And so when they were talking about some of the possible programs they could have, like this arts program at Matilaha, they were looking towards establishing a relationship with the city for funding and for organizing community together for these projects. So they talked about it in terms of a 2+2 with the council, I think.
They did. So, and that's what I was trying to clarify early in the program. And then our council also talked about it Tuesday night. So anyway, I thought it was a good meeting. We reiterated that we were invited to be there. We didn't introduce ourselves into being on the agenda. Again, I thought that was respectful, that in looking at all of the possibilities and opportunities that they asked for the HBC to be there. So I think we have a good relationship just by the invitation. So I take that looking forward. I do have a couple corrections. I referred to the I mentioned the historic structures of merit because they were saying, oh, we're on your agenda every meeting. I said, well, you're going to be on our agenda tomorrow night because we're talking about the historic structures of merit, and you've been a part of that for 10 years. I did refer to it as Craig's baby. That wasn't a correct term, but I apologize for that. The other thing was, I thought I remembered Craig and Darwin working closely together in getting the preschool as a part of the proposal. And Craig reminded me that he had retired 2 years before that. So I think he was coming in as an individual and working with us in a very enjoyable, needed individual. So that was last night. I also attended Tuesday night's council meeting. The last agenda on their council was setting a priority for the city. City manager Mark Frost, who was here for a limited number of months, kept reminding. So he suggested that there be what?
Oh, I think you were just talking about Mark Scott.
Scott, sorry. Mark Frost is another individual. Mark Scott, sorry.
Interim city manager.
Yeah, so he's the interim city manager. He had suggested to the council that there be 2 priorities. One was the one that he could work on in the months that he has here, and the other a longer-term one. So they had, I don't know, 15 or 20 priorities. Mark had slimmed it down to 8 priorities. Getting the commissions, an understanding of the commissions, the composition of the commissions, the recruitment of the commissions, who's going to interview the commissions, all those kind of things. Getting that cleared up was one of the 8 priorities that were listed on Mark's abbreviated schedule. being one of the two remaining people that were still sitting there, mentioned that our priority for the HPC was, in fact, to figure out what's going on. I mentioned in that meeting that at that community meeting, or at that council meeting, that I felt as though our number 7 had been recognized and authorized to a degree, but in talking with somebody else and asking about recruitment, I was reminded that there had to be a second reading, which is true. They haven't, I think they're going to perhaps start that over again. When I was walking out, one of the council people caught up with me and said, I thought you guys had actually been authorized for 7, but again, I think that's the first reading, second reading. So they're aware of ours, and they have prioritized getting the commissions all straightened out in the upcoming council meetings.
Brian, I had heard that, and I don't know if it'll actually happen, but I heard that one of the topics that they might discuss at their priority setting meeting on the 30th is there's been a request for them to revisit the designation of Taramina as a historic district, so we might want to pay attention to that. There was a woman that stood up and at a meeting a while back and said that she was going to bring that to the council, so I think that might have gained some traction, and it might be a topic that they'll discuss in case anybody wants to be there to.
Exactly. Yes, I remember that. And some people know that I've been riding my bike all over the valley. And when I rode it through Taramina, one of those key residents happened to be out in front of his house raking up the pine needles. And so we had a discussion. And so the Taramina is very aware of that insertion of that possibly affecting Taramina or possibly being discussed. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for bringing that up.
Heads up.
Yes, thank you. So those are the two things that came from the meetings we've been involved with. And again, I want to thank Craig for being there. He's always cool, calm, and collected, and knowledgeable. The other thing is just to finish it, the plaque for Harry Hutt Sr. has been passed off to the people that are going to make that. So my understanding is that it is in process. Got a thumbs up over there from the city. Okay. Hopefully Sherry's giving a thumbs up from the back room. Okay.
I have a
yes.
comment. Dr. Knox gave me the email addresses of the principals for my letter, so I'm going to be sending that out this week. The schools should be coming back around now.
Excellent.
Commissioner, Vice Chair McHatton, are you talking about the letter inviting the schools to visit the jail? Fantastic.
And that's great, because with all the turmoil that's going on, they're looking for good things for their students to be able to do. So. Anything else? Okay. Oh, stay in place. We have a visitor out there. Visitor, would you like to come and introduce yourself? Okay. And tell us how we correctly pronounce your first name, since I messed it up.
I'm T.O.B. Barron. I'm with the Ojai Valley News. So I usually like to actually maintain a little bit of different, distance. A little bit weird being up here as a speaker. I am filling in for Kim Rivers. This is actually her beat until she comes back from vacation at the end of the month. The theater, the formerly ISIS theater, I had my first kiss ever in front of that theater.
See, Tayobi, we're much friendlier commission than the others, so we like people to introduce people. Thank you for being here tonight and staying with us. Okay, we're done.